Has there ever been a piece of media that you were really invested in as a teenager and you go back over it as an adult for nostalgia's sake only to find that it really wasn't what you remembered? I don't mean you lose your attachment to it, I mean more so you find something you used to think was actually good turned out to be really fucking terrible. Most people seem to say this about music, like Black Veil Brides, or, when they had a blood on the dance floor phase. Sometimes it even extends to YouTubers like Shane Dawson or Onision. Anyone who has had a scene phase can definitely understand what I'm talking about, and there are also people who apply this exact same logic to the cringe culture phase they had as well. But I never related to any of these things because I never liked them to begin with. About the closest thing I have is with an anime series I got obsessed with back in high school. Elfen Lied is a manga written by Lin Okamoto that ran from October 18th, 2002 to November 18th, 2005. It's also his debut work, originally serialized in Shueisha's weekly Young Jump from June 2002 to August 2005. Our story's title, Elfen Lied, is German for Elf Song, which is thematically relevant and probably something I'll talk about as we go. Probably necessary that I include a trigger warning. I mean, it should be obvious given brutality is a part of this franchise's core identity, but I figured I'd say it anyway. This video has a lot of really triggering topics, from child abuse to molestation to trauma. And there are a lot of really horrible things that happen in this manga that I will be talking about in depth, so I just figured I'd throw that out there. I'm gonna go ahead and just be honest. It's not a positive video, and I will be very harsh on Elfen Lied, but I want people watching this analysis to understand that I'm not creating this particular review as a means of harshly jumping on the hate wagon. Because believe me when I say this, there is absolutely no shortage of hate for Elfen Lied. I already did a podcast on the anime adaptation of this particular manga, in which a bunch of friends and I tear it to pieces and just have a grand old time. And as fun as that podcast might have been, I don't feel we really did the series the justice it truly deserves. Initially, I was going to write a video about the appeal of a series like Elfen Lied, only to find that the idea was already taken by someone named Hazel, and it's a 2-hour video breaking down the series in depth. So I opted to drop this video until I read the manga, and to my surprise, it somehow found a way to disappoint me. I've watched the anime adaptation at least 100 times now because showing it to people is a genuinely fun experience for me, and I've never once grown tired of it. And even if my view on the anime is cynical, what becomes noticeable is that I've never sat through the series one time and not enjoyed myself with it. From beginning to end, it's an absolutely wild ride that I find myself drawn to despite how bad the writing is. It's also really creepy, and not in a good way, like a genuinely bad way. I actually read the manga a long time ago back when I was a teenager, and during that period I hated it, and I wasn't quite able to identify why. So for a really long time I never bothered to reread it, until recently. And I've come to the conclusion that not only is this easily the worst manga I might have ever read in my entire life, but somehow it made me appreciate the anime a lot more. So this review is an explanation for why.
I just fucked a bitch with another bitch, put a knife to her throat and I took her shit, yeah, motherfuckers wanna...
Our story opens with a perspective on a huge prison island and a helicopter arrival on it with a man welcomed by a bespectacled director. I do like that the story begins rather straightforwardly, presenting a lot of mysterious intrigue. These two officers are keeping guard over a prisoner in some kind of police station. It's revealed as well that it is dangerous to approach this prisoner within 2 meters. This, combined with the fact that one of the officers drops his pen into the ring, creates a sense of urgency right from the start, which I would say is a good move to have new readers invested. It is at this moment where our director Kurama explains what she is and states that she is a new species chosen by God. And this is here to indicate that religion will end up being a big theme in this story. Unfortunately, it's a rather cheesy and laughable attempt at doing so. He overtly compares the awful actions of humanity throughout history to Diclonius, which is a rather direct way of saying that there's a monster inside of all of us. I feel like it maybe would work better if it wasn't so obvious, and on top of that, also wasn't so early in the story. That being said, I understand that it's here to sum up all the themes in this manga right from the get-go. Part of the problem is that the introduction of the anime adaptation to this is a lot better. You're not even given the context of what's going on until these cops right here announce that they can't approach her within 2 meters. The first shot you even see is a severed arm, which immediately builds intrigue and suspense. It sets the mood in a way that the manga frankly doesn't, with the entire context being super vague and confusing. Who is this man in the other room with the corpses opening the door for her? What does she do to these cops to fuck them up this badly? How is she tearing these people to shreds without even trying? Why is she naked?
Double cheeked up on a Thursday afternoon.
It is effectively perplexing and raises questions that will be answered in time. Having those answers given to you right from the get-go completely takes away from that. To put it in summary, this prisoner is what is known as a diclonius. These diclonius are a mutation born with horns. They look as well as act like human beings, however are set apart from them by having psychokinetic abilities, where they use invisible hands to tear people up. For starters, why are they called diclonius? Diclonius means double sprout and is a genus of dinosaur from the late Cretaceous. And I figured that since horns were one of the main attributes that set these things apart, maybe there would be some kind of intention for naming them after a fucking dinosaur, but no, it's just a name that sounds cool, I guess. So the name means nothing, but beyond just that, the design is obviously replicating Neko girls. They have these ear horns, which makes it feel laughably dumb as a disease. My daughter keeps turning into Nekomatica. It's contagious. It's after this ominous introduction where we transition to a lighthearted reunion between our main male lead Kota and his cousin Yuka. These characters are a bit of a convoluted problem that I will touch on later, but so far we're not really given much. I do like the decision to juxtapose the darkness of the prison to the gentle and melancholic atmosphere of the beach. Not only does it draw a connection between the two characters rather subtly, it perfectly sets up the dynamic between them, especially later when Lucy escapes. I'll have more to say about these characters as we go, but for now we transition back to Lucy. Lucy begins beating her invisible fists against the floor. His severed arm is drawn rather grotesquely, but it isn't the full focus. Seldom does it take up much attention in any of the panels, which I found kind of interesting. It's handled so casually, and I believe this is to emphasize to the reader just how meaningless their lives are to Lucy. I think it's a good way to begin her character, but what bugs me about the scene and the beginning scene is that the cops all look the same. I remembered back when I first read this, I thought these scenarios were the same incident, but that just goes to show how bad my reading comprehension is. Next, we're shown Kisaragi, a really clumsy secretary girl. And when I rewatched the anime back in 2020, I saw this as jarring, but now that I think about it, it does add to the eeriness of this beginning quite well. It's necessary because we go back to Lucy holding the other cop's decapitated head. It's actually pretty creepy and leaves what she did up to the imagination, which was a great touch. I won't say it's without its flaws, though. The secretary character that falls a lot is really obnoxious and dumb. It's like Lin took a hentai scenario and turned it into a running joke that really isn't that funny. This is not the first time I'll complain about the humor of this manga, because it really just doesn't connect with me, and that's fine. It's not supposed to be a comedy manga. This girl is actually an important asset to the story later in the chapter, so her existence is at least somewhat justifiable. Things get a little more intense just a couple pages later, with Lucy tearing apart every officer present to shreds. It's not the best art style in the world, but at this moment, the violence is definitely satisfying. Kurama's cumbersome secretary, Kisaragi, has returned and runs right into Lucy, who instantly takes her as a hostage, telling them to open the door and let her out. Kurama advises her that her life should be forfeited to stop Lucy's getaway. She discovers a type of bliss in the way that she'll assist him with her death. And this is a dumb mindset to have, because you are not helping him at all, you are getting in his way, and he is telling you that you are getting in his way. Lucy reacts by tearing her head off and utilizing her body as a safeguard against the hail of gunfire that follows. One cop is fucking stupid enough to absurdly run right at her and has his heart removed. I don't know what he expected to happen. I understand the intent very well, although I think some of it was just a little too goofy to take seriously. Like, aside from how funny the image of her cutting off Kisaragi's head was, I also got a kick out of this part where Kurama just smiles at her corpse. I think this is to establish that he is also just a little unhinged and gets a sick joy out of this as well. It's very different from how he was depicted in the anime, where he was aloof and quiet. But I'm sorry, I laughed so hard when I saw his smiling face. It was just so fucking funny to me. As Lucy leaves, Kurama orders the Enduring Fighters back inside and orders a sniper to target her before she can escape via the ocean. At points, the situation becomes quite hard to read. Lucy just walks out to the cliff like that, and then Kurama gets to an upper level with a sniper rifle at the ready. I'm not even sure how he had the time to do that. And this was remedied in the anime just by making her walk really slow. Yeah, I don't know about that one. I mean, maybe, but maybe not. Yes, I would like one revenge please. As far as the first chapter goes, I would say that things are decent enough, but they could be better. It's a good way to set up the premise, and it's satisfyingly violent enough to immediately get your attention, but I also feel like the series runs out of gas too quickly, and you'll see what I mean as we go. It's only fucking downhill from here. As it turns out, she's only capable of saying one word. New. Yuka forces Kota to strip and give her his clothes. Yuka recommends taking her and Kota to the house she'll remain at while in school. New saying new is obviously dumb, but again, it does show where his intentions lie with the Diclonius and their design. It's like a pure naive child. She's got bones shaped like cat ears in her head, and if you were expecting her not to meow like a cat, then there is no saving you, and I recommend clicking off the video now. It actually gets worse in the same chapter when, for absolutely no reason at all, New takes a little piss on the floor. Yeah, it's not here for any other reason than just weird fetish shit, so make of that what you will. You're going to be seeing a lot of very questionable scenes like this, but the thing is, they immediately clarify why this is important in some way, as it gives Kota a much deeper understanding of her current condition. It's just that there are less weird ways to establish that. I can think of about 1 million different methods you could use without making her urinate on the floor. So it's even funnier to me in retrospect.
I'd suck that fucking tit.
Yeah, so the volume ends with Kota putting clothes on New because hers are wet. The dumb fuck does it with his eyes closed the entire time, and then Yuka conveniently walks in on them. Bro, just open your fucking eyes. It's not like she has a concept of shame. So like any sensible person, Yuka slaps him. Why Yuka look like she about to drop the hardest whip I ever seen? Though it's not from a place of concern for the mentally impaired woman, rather just because she's mad that he's not undressing her instead. There will be a lot of repeats of this kind of behavior as we go along, so rather than belabor the point, I'll go ahead and basically just sum it up here. Yuka is selfish. She has a weird, creepy, incestual crush on her cousin, and anytime he so much as looks in the direction of another woman, she gets really upset and angry. And while we're on the topic of ableism, it's very telling that Yuka is willing to physically assault Kota for not being able to remember his childhood, especially since she should be well aware that it's PTA and he can't do anything about it. It's not like they don't try to develop her. I mean, she goes home and remembers the time at the festival when she couldn't die cut, you know, katanuki, those fucking Japanese carnival games. I mean, honestly, part of the problem might just be that you keep cutting off parts of the animal that you've already cleared. But putting that aside, I feel like it's not really a bad idea to go for something this small and mundane because it emphasizes that it isn't small to her. I mean, she collected a fuck ton of them in practice because she desperately wanted him to praise her. That's pretty understandable, and I think it's handled well enough that it could work. My only problem is that the foundation is itself pretty ableist and in very bad taste, and I mean, that's not a line that Elfen lead refrains from crossing multiple times throughout this manga. Like, it happens again in chapter 10 with a really unnecessary part where New makes Kota grab her tit. You know, it's just as creepy and gross in the anime as it is here, but at least it doesn't look like it was drawn by some random teenager on DeviantArt. Like, it's bad enough she's making him grab her boob, but he assumes she wants him to squeeze it, and he does, despite knowing that this is kind of wrong, as well as gross.
It's fun for me just to grab a boob.
Yeah, don't molest New while I'm gone, please, you silly goose. It gets even worse because later on they introduce this literal fucking rape victim and end up sexualizing her by having New grope her for no reason. I honestly have no idea why this is a fucking trope to constantly sexualize abuse victims. Despite that, the thing to understand about a lot of the fetish stuff in this manga is that it's here for the sake of it. I mean, this is inherently a fetish work, and me being critical of it really isn't going to change its intent. It's something the anime kept in. I mean, this is inherently a fetish work. So me taking scenes like this and saying, oh, hey guys, this is really problematic and gross, like, it's kind of moot, because that's what this is supposed to be. Weird, gross fetish stuff. So I still have a problem with these scenes, but I think the tasteful art style of the anime might have softened the blow as a kid, and could be why people just don't really question it. It's not exactly the reason people like Elfen Lied, but the problem is that no matter which version you read, it's still going to be there, and that alone is a huge part of the reason my attachment to the story is limited. If Kota isn't groping the mentally impaired girl, he's sticking his tongue down his cousin's throat, and then getting slapped because he saw her ass. It extends to that underage girl on the beach, the childish prisoner, and just about every other woman who enters the picture that Kota has a gross power imbalance over. Or the fact that for some reason, we feel a need to show these Diclonius kids naked despite all of them being like fucking 11. This is a depraved manga, and I don't need to explain why these things are an issue, but they're not what this video is supposed to be about. And I'm just saying this because I don't want to repeat myself anymore. So when it comes up, just keep in mind I fucking hate it.
I'm all about the zinc and the copper. I only do feds, no coppers. Labels trying to hit me with the go-go. I'm after.
Anyway, Niu takes a bath, puts on some of Kota's clothes, and the three of them have a nice chat about fun topics such as childhood trauma. Basically, Kota references his dead little sister and, like, you're supposed to care. Another move from the manga that I didn't quite understand was giving the viewer an image of Kanai in a hospital bed, since this was literally said to be untrue, and not at all how she died much later in the story. I understand this is what Kota tries to remember, but it feels misleading, and I think it would be a lot better to establish a much more happy memory with her, rather than one that just straight up doesn't exist. It's easy to gain the viewer's sympathy, but I think it's just unintentionally misleading, though this is a bit of a nitpick, so I'm probably looking too deeply into it. I prefer how the anime approached it by having a scene of her on the beach giving him the very seashell that will become important in just a moment. I mean, the shot looks like shit because the water of the beach doesn't line up at all, but it's a lot less misleading and much more memorable. Regardless, Niu breaks Kota's seashell memento, and it's pretty blunt and honestly hilarious, especially since Kota reacts accordingly and yells at her in rage. There's nothing particularly wrong with this scene except when Yuka tries to create a flimsy excuse for why she did this. Oh yeah, she saw it was making you sad, so she tried to break it to cheer you up. It's insanely corny and forced, but I guess they needed an excuse for Kota to get angry. One thing that was weirdly lost in the anime was Kurama's impulsiveness. There's a part where he breaks a teacup out of anger because it reminds him of the girl at the beginning who was brutally murdered by Lucy. In the anime, he's just kind of aloof, and he never says anything. His partner here is just an excuse for him to info dump, but in the manga it becomes clear he actually does really care a lot about the people around him. With this rabid serial killer out on the loose, Kurama really needs a professional to take her down, so the first person he calls to do so is an edgy guy who has apparently never killed anyone in his entire life, despite really wanting to. Yeah, this is your first order of business. This is Bondo, who is in the middle of a test and, like, randomly gets angry that he has to be doing tests or something because, like I said, he really wants to kill real people. Considering they just built him up as an elite and earlier just said he was a soldier in war, doubt that this dude has not killed anyone already. But it's a pretty poor first impression when the first thing you learn about him is that he wants to kill people and only became a cop in order to do so. That being said, I did find the scene of him knocking a woman out quite humorous in its own extremely morbid and blunt way. It does establish pretty well how impulsive and grouchy he is, as well as that he tends to resort to violence in order to solve all of his problems. They dehumanize him instantly the second he shows up, and it just kind of happens so fast and out of the blue that I genuinely didn't expect it the first time I saw it and laughed my ass off.
Just go out and cap her, huh?
Mr. Bondo?
Never sneak up behind me, stupid bitch.
Anyway, the cops show up to Kota's house asking about Niu, and naturally he doesn't trust the police and goes out to look for her. No, a cop definitely didn't assault you. You're crazy. You're making that up. I keep wondering if Elfen Lied is ACAB intentionally, because if it's not intentional at all, that's fucking hilarious. I've seen critique that Kota is dumb for not telling the police the truth, but if you take into account the fact that he takes in various women for no other reason than wanting to fill the void left behind by his dead sister, as well as his strange familiarity with her presence, then I think it's totally justified and makes complete sense that he would feel a need to protect her from the police. It's one of the few instances where I feel like a character's impulsiveness in this story actually does make sense. So Bondo's on a helicopter headed straight for the beach he thinks she's washed up on, and he's really fucking annoying. I'm like genuinely baffled that Bondo made it this far in the military. Like, he's actually confused about the fact that he isn't allowed to shoot random fucking civilians for no reason. Like, yeah, we get it. He bases his whole personality around the fact that he wants to kill people. It's just so bad. And the anime actually fixed this scene by making him much more endearing. Like, he points a gun at another officer's neck and pulls the trigger, but the gun was empty and he was just doing it to scare everyone. I feel like that better establishes him as a murder-crazed freak without making him sound like an edgy 14-year-old boy, and it's hilarious to me that something that cool was not in the manga at all. Anyway, Kota eventually finds Lucy and she gives him a new seashell, and her fingers are like bleeding because she cares so much, guys. It's so passionate. She's passionate. Bondo eventually runs into them and acts even more annoying when he decides to beat the shit out of Kota for like no reason at all, but I can't really complain because it is pretty satisfying and funny to watch Kota get the shit beat out of him. Anyway, after dragging Mew to a different part of the beach, he tries to get her to go Joker mode to no avail, so he gives up and tells his partner to just go ahead and kill her. I did think Mew's transformation back into Lucy was cleverly misleading. It makes you think that Bondo's partner shot her in the head, and we just cut back to Kota to leave you on a cliffhanger, and that did a perfectly fine job of leaving suspense and ambiguity at Mew's potential death. Anyway, Lucy suddenly goes back to being a gamer and kills Bondo's partner, and then the two of them have a big battle of wits, which results in Lucy throwing a bunch of shit at him. And this is going to be one of those rare moments where I actually have to give the manga props. The fight between Bondo and Lucy has this really interesting and heavy focus on strategy. Bondo recalls a grenade next to the body and, like, decides to listen for the sound of Lucy stepping on the blood so he can quickly fire at it and blow her up. But she counters this by tossing the grenade aside and using his gun to shoot him down.
Truth is, the game was rigged from the start.
So again, like, to the manga's credit, the anime completely and totally left out that small detail, and so this scene looked way more stupid than it needed to. He just listens for her to step on the blood, goes to attack, and then she shoots him. It's just like the studio that made the anime didn't even pay attention, which is really weird because, like, most of it actually fixes the manga, but this is one of those exceptions. So this somehow knocks him out, and she drags him to another part of the beach, and he wakes up, ready to kill her. I should go ahead and just confirm that Bondo is an idiot for screaming out, announcing that he is literally going to attack. Like, she pokes his eyes out, breaks one arm, rips off the other, and pretty much does everything but kill him. Then she conveniently has this weird screaming fit, falls to the ground, and then turns back into Mew. On the one hand, I think this establishes her split personality pretty well. On the other, there's no rhyme or reason to why she just suddenly changes back, or why she took her sweet-ass time to kill Bondo by dragging him unconscious to some other part of the beach and patiently waiting for him to wake up.
Let's go! Foot fetish!
Anyway, after she fucks off, Mayu goes to the beach and finds Bondo deciding to cover up his wounds and call an ambulance, and the series wastes no time introducing Mayu and her dynamic with him, being that she's the one who saves him and calls 911. Her finding the umbrella is also a pretty natural reason for her to meet Kota and Yuka, so I can at least commend this manga for that. Regardless, we get to see a naked Nana, the next person that they're sending after Lucy. The first thing I want to note before we continue is that, aesthetically, this is a very fucking ugly manga. Now listen, I'm not saying that it should look like Made in Abyss or Vinland Saga or Vagabond or Berserk or any of those other, like, greats, you know, because that's kind of like a ridiculous standard to hold every single manga to. But the art is what the fuck? Oh, Jesus Christ. It's probably the ugliest thing I've ever seen, which is saying a lot, because I've read One Piece. That previous joke is definitely going to make people mad, and I'm here for it. Putting that aside, this is underwhelming because despite the hiccups you'd see occasionally sprinkled throughout the anime, it still found a way to be visually interesting and atmospheric. The long shot of Lucy walking across the screen might be easy to criticize on the surface, and it's definitely something I've complained about in the past, but after reading this manga, I feel like its inclusion is meant to allow the viewer a chance to process the intensity of our beginning. If anything, it's actually a brilliant move, bringing this sense of immersion, which feels totally absent from the original. It's not just moments like this that make the anime of Elfen Lied strong. Things like that are spread all over the series. The OVA had some of the most distinct and cute animation the series had to offer, but beyond just that, you also had scenes like the death of Kurama, leading him to grasp his daughter as we go through quick glimpses of a future he will never see. Like, despite the flawed premise, these moments are impactful and presented in a way that brings the anime to life. I will always remember how worried I was for these characters when Mariko first showed up, or how shocked I was when Lucy killed Koda's family over petty jealousy. It's a genuinely well-directed series with an incredibly flawed approach at storytelling, and that's hardly the fault of the anime at all. It feels like making the most out of something bland. But in the manga, everything feels simplified in a way that, honestly, holds moments like this back. The only thing that the manga has to offer is page after page of generic box panels and mediocre art. There's no experimentation in the structure of any of it. This might seem like an unfair comparison, since the anime has more elements to make it work in its favor, so let me remedy this by comparing Elfen to something within its own realm. Dead Man Wonderland, which is a manga, mind you, that I also heavily disliked. The writing in Dead Man Wonderland is about equal in quality, but what made that manga more enjoyable to read was that there was still a clear focus on making it feel visually interesting. Pages would go from zigzags to slanted boxes to an entire page detailing a room full of corpses. But despite the glaring issues with the plot, Dead Man Wonderland's visual presentation at least showcases the author's eccentricities. Now, I will say that Elfen was Lin Okamoto's first manga. Parallel Paradise and Brynhildr in the Darkness are two other stories written by the same author, and they still opted to keep the same box structure for every page, but at the very least would find a way of switching the visuals up a little bit, occasionally focusing on detail, even if these special images were few and far between. So arguably you can make the contention that Elfenlied's art style suffers because Lin Okamoto was just a beginner, but I hope with this particular complaint of mine, you can at least see where I'm coming from when I say that the anime stuck with me a lot more than the manga did. I am biased as someone who grew up with the anime, but I think manga is more than just the sum of its parts. Too many pages in this series feel safe, with hardly any artistic risks taken at all. Now, I will admit that it's not all bad. I think this image of Lucy, or New, I guess, is actually really good. The anatomy is decent, the shading is somewhat realistic, it's not particularly detailed, but her outfit is cute, and for once her face actually looks like a face. If there's anything you can probably gather from looking at Lin Okamoto's other works, it's that his art actually did progressively get better, but it's nice to see some potential improvement this early on. Anyway, we continue on with Bondo yelling at Kurama for threatening to take his balls.
Nice balls! I'll have to take them!
He says that Bondo lost to the first mitochondria ever created in 200,000 years. And I don't know what the fuck that means, but I guess it sounds ominous. Something tells me that I did not read a very well-translated version of this manga. Yuka shows up to Koda's house so she can bring New more clothes, showing that she knew he was trying to help her out the whole time, and there's, like, basically no justification for acting like a child earlier. I did find the part with New attempting to be helpful pretty funny, mostly because she's autistic.
Leg day, man! Leg day! Beef that booty up, bitch! I can't fap to this. Get this scrawny ass booty out my face. This is disgusting. This is the most disgusting thing in this whole native. I'm legitimately offended right now. Why the hell would you put this in my face? This is slim fucking picking. There's no meat on those bones. Do a little jogging, eat better. You're obviously not getting that many calories. Do some lunges. For the love of Christ. I seriously feel for anybody who you serve this up to. They're just gonna friggin' open up the 10-piece and just see that the meat's already been stripped off the bone. This is depressing.
Anyway, New tells her to bring him water, so she comes in, sees that he's sick, and decides to help take care of him, with the two of them talking about his deceased sister, which takes me to one major reason I also don't like this manga compared to the anime. In the show, we hear about Koda's sister a lot, but it's all handled through vague imagery, flashbacks, symbolism of Koda being surrounded by mannequins to represent his false delusions that he uses to repress those memories, as well as the false delusions of anyone who says that the manga is at all better than the anime. But they fit because they're also here during many of the scenes with Lucy, as she realizes she can't be with him after what she did. And that's the important difference. You're only teased a little bit and given a few indistinct and unclear hints of what happened, but you don't see the full picture until he himself remembers it. Then once you get to the twist, all of those scenes are recontextualized with new meaning. It's a shocking moment that genuinely surprised me on my first go, because I didn't think it would take things that far, and it totally did, with no remorse. In the manga, you're pretty much just told right away that his father and sister were both cut to pieces, and at this point, it really doesn't take a lot of imagination to know just what killed them. It's not impactful whatsoever, and completely takes away any potential intrigue or suspense, opting instead to just give you the answer on a silver fucking platter. This becomes even more detrimental later, when Lucy sees Coda and goes to attack him, only to halt when she sees a vision of him as a younger child begging her to stop. It makes me glad that I did watch the anime and experience the big reveal at the end, because if I had read the manga, I would have easily put 2 and 2 together that it was Lucy who killed his sister. And to make matters worse, Yuka really doesn't make herself any more likable here. "Are you having any weird ideas?" she asks, right after taking his temperature by putting her forehead against his. Wait, what do you mean weird ideas? You're the one that literally thought he was going to molest Mew and decided that the best reaction would be to get jealous. Also, Koda's fever somehow goes away within like 2 hours, and I don't understand this fucking series. Mayu, the weird orphan girl from earlier, shows up at his house to give him the umbrella that went missing, then tells him about what happened at the beach with those soldiers, and as this happens, Mew trips, falls, and goes Joker mode again, and then the chapter comes to a close right here as a cliffhanger. Given the unpredictability of Lucy's strange condition, it's a pretty decent way of leaving you on edge. I do remember the first time I saw this as a kid, I was worried that she was gonna fucking massacre them just like she did to those cops. They do this again in the following chapter as well. She hesitates to kill Coda upon recognizing him and decides to step outside for a bit, and then it looks like she's gonna kill Mayu's dog.
What the dog doing?
It even gets better when you see her disturbed reaction only to find that it's just because Wanta was set free. I'm not sure how just cutting a rope would make such a powerful impact, but I did think it was interesting. Chapter 12 has us establishing a couple concepts, particularly with the fact that Diclonius can sense each other's presence. We also learn that many Diclonius are kept in this institution to undergo harsh experimentation, though we're not directly shown what kind of experimentation per se. It leaves the aspect of mystery open, whilst also feeding you more information on these Diclonius creatures in an intriguing way. Since sending a human didn't work, it's only natural that fighting fire with fire would be our next move. Unfortunately, where this premise falls flat is that the structure of Elfen Lied is a little bit repetitive, because it's just Kurama sending people after Lucy only for them to get their ass beat, because he sends the dumbest fucking people imaginable. This girl's name is Nana. And with her, at least her stupidity is a lot more reasonable than that of Bondo's, since she has no reference for the outside world. But given she's not hostile, it makes sense why she'd be the only Diclonius Kurama can trust with this mission. And I think this puts both of them in a bit of a difficult situation. I think it makes things really interesting, especially since it instills a moral dilemma on this brand new character. It makes her introduction pretty complex, to say the least. Moving on to the next chapter, Lucy sheds a little bit of light on how she manages to kill people so easily. Apparently, she literally rearranges their insides, which is a very morbid but somewhat realistic idea that I definitely have to give props for. The art actually does improve a little bit here. I like Lucy's dark expression as she threatens Nana. The image of her knocking her into the bricks behind her also looks really impactful and satisfying, with a lot of energy and intensity conveyed in the lines to really make it effective. Alright, Lucy, you're getting a little too handsy there. What are you doing? Little by little, the visual presentation does improve from time to time, and I'd be lying if I said it was totally ugly from start to finish. Compared to the fight with Bondo, this one's actually a lot more of an improvement, and it really shows. You can tell he wanted to make this an exciting moment. Nana pretty much overpowers Lucy due to her vectors being a bit longer. Many of the panels start to get more dark and detailed, like this image of a tree being knocked over. I always remember this battle pretty fondly because it's just batshit insane. Nana uses a tree to fling herself upward, and Lucy punches her while midair. It's a pretty crazy fight, especially since the chapter ends with Nana getting her leg cut off. I especially love how, instead of killing Mayu, who literally is a witness and just watched her cut Nana's legs off, she just pushes her to the side and knocks her out. I'll be honest and state that Lucy's moral compass doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Like, the implication seems to be that she'll kill humans, but never animals. So there's not much rhyme or reason for her to let Mayu live, she just chooses to do so. Like, in the anime, she throws her into a fucking tree, which sort of makes more sense than just pushing her to the ground and moving on. This is part of the problem with the super gory beginning, because it builds this first impression that Lucy's cold and ruthless, but then she just never kills anyone else for like 50 chapters. I can see this being really underwhelming for someone who just reads this for the gore, honestly. As if that's not bad enough, I remember laughing at how bad the blood looks in this one image. Why does it look like fucking paint? Or like oil from a car. I commend the anime's art style because even if it isn't the most amazing thing I've ever seen, I recall this being one of the most effective and popular moments in the series. Bando's fight felt needlessly drawn out when she started breaking his arms and shit, but watching her turn Nana into a fucking amputee had a much more impactful feeling, both because Nana is supposed to be cute as well as the fact that it actually feels like sadistic torture and not just plot armor. The excuse for why she doesn't finish the job makes a lot more sense too, but it's also handled with enough brutality to really make Lucy seem pretty scary. It's not like this is the most terrifying thing ever, but I do think it's emblematic of what got me into this anime series to begin with. In the manga, Nana really isn't that cute because nobody in this story looks cute at all. Like, they all look very ugly. But also, Lucy just starts laughing maniacally, and it's super tacky and takes away from her mysteriousness and aloofness by making her obnoxious. Anyway, Nana fingers her brain, which somehow keeps her from generating hands. This part actually isn't that bad. We're given a little bit of drama, some insight into Kurama's backstory. He also punches Lucy, which is hilarious. And then he has a totally realistic reason to approach her with such confidence that actually won't be revealed until much later, even despite Nana succeeding in blocking her hands. It's a bit dumb that she got away, especially since she's now incapable of using the very ability that got her out of prison. Like, what does she even have on these trained police officers each holding machine guns? But whatever, I think the situation with Nana is dramatically effective and makes Kurama kind of interesting in a mysterious way. The volume ends with director Kakuzawa, who is basically the man in charge of everything, stressing the importance of why capturing Lucy matters so much, which is, he wants to rape her and become the father of a new race. On the one hand, I think it establishes this director guy as an unhinged maniac with his priorities in the wrong place. On the other, the phrasing is unintentionally hilarious, and his presence is very small leading up to this big twist. I think it should have waited a little bit longer, but there's more to reveal about him that remains mysterious at this point, so I'm not complaining too much. We begin the next volume by finally getting a chance to learn about that homeless girl from earlier. Yeah, we get to see her backstory, although it's handled very passively. We just kind of breeze through all of it and move the fuck on. I was honestly astonished at how fast we just got to the point. She was molested by her new stepdad, and her mom was jealous and beat her relentlessly, so she decided to run away. Honestly, I think what makes this backstory feel insulting to me is that it creates this horrible situation to make you feel sympathetic for this character, without really giving you anything to make her interesting outside of that. There's no setup whatsoever, you just get thrown right into it. There's no calm before the storm, and we just start things off, jumping right into the dark shit. Now in the anime, you at least got to see the guy's face before he started doing his best Jesse Lacey impression. That one's for all you emos out there. I know, it fucking sucks and I'm sorry. It was handled with a really dreary atmosphere, and I recall feeling worried as to where this was going to go the first time I saw. Then, when it went exactly where I figured it would, it felt effectively disturbing and sad. Sexual assault is a terrible and traumatic thing, and issues like this are something that happen in the real world. But you have to be willing to put in the effort to really establish just how horrifying it is. Otherwise, it's basically like I'm reading really creepy hentai, which given the weird shit from earlier where we basically fetishize taking advantage of a woman with the mental capacity of a child, doesn't sound far off. Sexual assault is a difficult and contentious topic to cover, and when you drop a rape scene and just move on like it's nothing, it feels a little bit insulting. To Elfen Lied's credit, they do expand on it a little bit much later. I'm talking like way later. But as it stands right now, it feels like the story would be exactly the same if we just had a panel of her mother beating her relentlessly and completely skipped over the weird sexual assault scene that preceded it. This next criticism is going to sound a little odd, but why isn't he running after her? Like, I understand the mom's point of view, but you would think that a pedophile who has a child in his possession would probably do anything in his power to both make sure that child stays in his custody and doesn't tell anyone. I do understand that justice is pretty hard to get. Cops are kind of fucking useless in that regard. I wonder what he's gonna do now that she's gone. He could probably turn himself in for his crimes. Maybe start a SoundCloud career. I suppose it's necessary to talk about the obvious reference to Silent Hill 2, considering Mayu's character design is a carbon copy of Angela's. The dog she named Wanta's real name is also James. Yeah. Plus, with her sexual assault and abusive mother, I don't think it's a stretch to say that Lin Okamoto paid homage. And I gotta admit, he clearly has good taste in video games, but it also proves my point, since the way Silent Hill 2 handled its themes about sexual abuse is obviously in much better taste. And yes, they are completely different mediums, so the comparison really isn't a fair one, but I mean, come on, at least introduce some subtlety. I think this chapter, as well as the previous one, is weird, because there's not much of an indicator for when we moved back to the present. Everything here is pretty fucking forced, especially with Koda saying he feels like a worried parent. But it's somewhat realistic for a teenager to think that crying is a sign of weakness. She goes to say goodbye to the lady at the bakery, who informs her that Koda and the others were worried about her. Once she makes it to the house, they throw a little birthday party, and it's pretty fucking corny, especially since they hardly know this little girl. I can't help being a cynic, but I will say that despite the corniness, it does a good job of being a pretty heartfelt scene. Mayu starts crying despite saying she wouldn't, but not because she's sad. They're basically tears of joy. It's a good moment, but it's hard for me to feel invested because of how fast we just breezed through her backstory. And then in the next chapter, she's immediately going to school. Isn't this happening a little bit fast? Well, I guess not, given they literally talk about trying to speak to her mother. She doesn't even try to get her daughter back, so I guess that's the end of that particular character arc. Though not complete without some creepy comment from Yuka about how many girls are in the house. She has a point though, it's just more people for him to sexually assault. It's also revealed that Nana is actually alive, and Kurama gave her plastic legs that fall off. Like, are we sure this isn't a comedy? Honestly, I will give this one to Lin Okamoto. The slice of life bit here really isn't all that bad. It's nice to focus on Koda and Yuka's regular lives after such a heavy start to the volume. I'm actually kind of upset that this entire plot point was cut from the anime. Niu even runs into Bondo at one point, who is ready to choke the shit out of this little girl until everyone around him starts saying Niu in different contexts. The joke doesn't translate well for people who speak English, but I genuinely thought this was pure gold, and I don't know why the anime left it out. This chapter is especially good because it manages to explain why they have to cut off Bondo's balls. They explained this in the anime too, although it was pretty dumb because Kurama pulls up a fucking x-ray that Bondo literally can't see. It's not any less silly here though when you... Jesus Christ. I'm very surprised this didn't make it in the anime, since it leads to a point where director Kakuzawa offers Bondo a deal and tells him to go ahead and have a baby to keep the Diaclonius bloodline going. And it's like a bit out of the blue after all the arguing they just had about why they totally should cut off his balls. There's a lot to this point in the manga that really didn't seem to make it to the anime at all. Like, another thing the series left out, for obvious reasons, is this really weird scene where Niu and Koda take a bath and then Mayu walks in on them and gets traumatized, and then there's this whole like plot point about how disgusted she is with him but refuses to tell Yuka about it. You probably think I'm going to complain about this, but actually I think this is one of the few moments where it totally makes sense that she'd not only be disgusted but reluctant to share anything about it, given last time she opened up about something like that she got smacked in the face. If there's any benefit I can say, this is the first time the weird fetish stuff is actually given a negative consequence. Or maybe Mayu is the first actually smart person to live in this house. Putting that aside, I think it's a good concept because it creates tension between her and Koda and also makes things even further difficult for her, given she just lost a ton of respect for the people she put all of her trust in. But what is going to become extensively clear as we get further on, it's obvious that this was cut for good reason, because it goes nowhere. He does nothing with this. There is the thing I talked about in the last video where Niu gropes her, and I think the worst part is that it's treated less as a potential plot point and more as just a running joke, which sucks because the potential for something pretty complex is definitely there. But Mayu has every right to be disgusted by Koda, and yet it never goes anywhere. I know I keep harping on that, but if you really want to know why I find it to be such an issue, just watch this video from Pop Culture Detective about being born sexy yesterday. It touches on why this kind of dynamic is not only creepy, but harmful. I'll leave a link in the description because it hits the nail on the head much better than I ever could hope to. But the gross dynamic between Koda and any of the women present in this household, save for Yuka, who is still his blood relative, completely fits everything this video criticizes. The next chapter is called Niu's House Arrest. Jesus Christ. In any case, Kakuzawa recognizes Niu as Lucy and tells them to hand her over. He also calls them out for not turning her in as soon as they saw her, which would have been much smarter, but I really like the theory that Kota is ACAB. After an emotional moment in which the two of them cry now that they have to let this girl they knew for like a couple months go, Kakuzawa strips her and chains her up, and then he uses a sedative to knock her out so he can rape her while unconscious. One very valid question many people might have by this point is why every Diclonius happens to be female. Spreading this disease, not by infecting human beings, but their offspring instead, feels a little bit redundant since they have an urge to kill human beings, and there needs to be a better way to procreate than just using your enemy's womb. Especially since it literally just depends on if the human being happens to survive. Given it goes alongside an urge to kill humanity, it's pretty clear that procreation isn't what these Diclonius are trying to do, when it totally is. This contradiction doesn't make a ton of sense, so they remedy this with the huge plot twist that Kakuzawa is indeed a Diclonius male. Apparently they do have guys, except they're bald and don't have the invisible hands that girls do. But that thirst for blood is definitely still there, since it's also revealed that he's the one who broke her out of prison. So this plot twist is a nice fix to this problem, allowing the Diclonius race to... Oh. Okay. Damn. You just... Wow. I guess Lucy isn't so interested in procreating, but we won't really get to understand her motives until much later. Anyway, Kota goes back to check on Mayu because he's unbelievably horny for a vegetable and happens to run into the girl who stinks good. Yeah, she never takes a shower in the whole fucking manga. I know it smelled crazy in there. In the anime, this scene was a lot more creepy and dark, but here it's just more comical. She kicks his head multiple times, not knowing it's him until after she rolls it over. Seriously, if you look and smell like this woman, please DM me immediately. Lucy goes and fingers some random stranger's brain, killing her in the process. And she actually has a pretty nice ass. Bondo gets a new enhancement for his eyes and arm, then is told to take these supplements that will cut his balls off. But instead, he punches the doctor and escapes, and I honestly don't know what they thought was going to happen. Since Director Kakuzawa is a male Diclonius, this means his father is one as well, or at the very least carries the virus. So basically, the government has Diclonius working from the inside. He tells him to go kill Nana, which puts him in a difficult position. My wife committed suicide, so yes, I am currently single. Just to let you ladies know. Yeah, so Bondo meets Mayu on the beach and realizes that she's the one who called the ambulance. Of course, this is after pushing her to the ground like a dick. Then he realizes he's indebted to her, so he gives her his number and says, if you're ever in trouble, call me and I'll come save you. And it's a bit weird you're just gonna give your number to a teenage girl, but putting that aside, he also learns that she happens to know exactly where Mayu is immediately after. Bondo begins threatening Mayu, telling her to spill the beans on this new character or else he'll wring her neck, and she responds with the hardest fucking roast I've ever seen. Basically, she holds up the number he gave her and says, I'm in trouble, save me, and then he just fucking drops her and leaves, which I totally understand because there's absolutely no coming back from that one. Honestly, I can't even tell if it was on purpose or not, but this was pretty clever, and I definitely commend Okamoto for that one. Chapter 32 is actually the part where we learn all about Lucy and the experiences she went through as a kid. By this point, the viewer is probably wondering what could have possibly happened to her that could turn her into the monster that she's become today. I mean, she just kills random people for no reason. The first thing you see her do is massacre an entire fucking police station. As it turns out, she grew up in an orphanage and was bullied by kids her age. Feeling isolated, she meets a stray dog and takes it in as a secret, only showing it to another girl that feels sympathetic towards her situation, but the girl ends up telling the boys about the dog, and they end up killing the poor thing with a rock. For no reason at all. Yeah, I get they're orphans, but this entire situation just feels a bit contrived and cliche. Like, oh, what's the worst thing you can think of? Children brutally beating a dog to death for no other reason than to make fun of the weird girl with horns. Like, I'm just having a hard time believing we'd see this kind of cruelty from this Go Diego Go motherfucker. And the thing is that this is the reason she became a serial killer and started roaming around from house to house tearing people to shreds for the fuck of it. And yes, I mean, Diclonius, they naturally have that inclination to kill people, but I hope you can at least see what I mean when I say it's like kind of underwhelming. Like, oh, that's it? Your dog died? That's the reason you've become the monster you are today, is your dog died? But what's worse is that this entire backstory is displayed through a lot of exposition, with her recounting her life story very vividly, which I find to be a bit dull. While the anime plays out exactly the same way, there are a few moments here and there that I found interesting. Like in the anime, the backstory is prompted by Lucy getting sick, which happened a lot when she was a little girl. She vividly remembers a situation in which her invisible hands would wander around, leaving prints on everything in her sleep. There's a mysteriousness to it that I can't quite place. It just left an impact on my 14-year-old brain. But just having everything spelled out for me in great detail doesn't make it feel nearly as strong, especially since you literally see this giant-ass hand ripping the kid's head off. Meanwhile, the anime leaves a lot of what she did up to the imagination, only showing the aftermath, which is like 10 times more unsettling. In any case, the chapter ends with her meeting Koda and preparing to kill him too, only to be met with admiration and surprise. He seems to really like her horns or something, I don't know. Anyway, I will concede that Koda meeting Lucy isn't a bad premise in and of itself, if admittedly a little cliche with the rain. I'm just not entirely sure why this kid is so willing to hang out with her just because she has some strange horns on her head, but I can't say I'd be any different. I like the idea of establishing her loneliness through insecurity over such an abnormal fear, but I don't think giving her a way to cover them up is a good way to make her feel better. He is a kid though, so I guess it's unreasonable to expect him to not be a silly, goofy goofball. Anyway, she quickly starts developing feelings for him, and then starts killing random people to stay in the night of their home and eat their food before leaving, all while naked, for no reason. Lucy begins to have a moral crisis over her actions, feeling a bit of guilt at the realization that she's become a monster. Eventually, Koda runs into her again, stating that he can't be here much longer, but can at least spend one more day with her at the zoo. You know, just for fun. This entire segment is cheesy and bad. Like, really bad. Lucy is super distraught that he has to go home when she's known this kid for like 2 fucking days. He doesn't even know her fucking name yet, but she is a child who is bullied a lot, so honestly, I kinda get it. The concepts are somewhat cute as she gets super excited over an elephant and a giraffe. They also get some snow cones and she starts to consider that maybe life isn't so bad. It is somewhat sweet, but it just isn't enough. Like, really, there should have been more to their dynamic than just a couple of days dicking around. Also, they splash each other at a lake and then sit together naked, which becomes the moment she truly falls in love with him. Obviously, this isn't very compelling or interesting backstory-wise because it just takes the most surface-level concepts imaginable and juxtaposes them to children dying. What I mean is that everything presented here is similar to the backstory with Mayu, showing that there's so much good in the world despite how horrible of a place it can really be, and we come to understand how far traumatized children are willing to take their cruelty, but what they do is so gruesome and exaggerated that it's hard to take it seriously, as it just feels like unnecessary and gratuitous torture porn just for the sake of it. It's going to take much more than just a trip to the zoo in order to balance the dark tone and make things more lighthearted and hopeful. While I'm sure these memories might have meant everything to Lucy, it's hard to sympathize with her even if she was a child with flawed logic. I was able to relate to it better as a kid, but having grown up and seen the real world, I find myself underwhelmed by this segment of the story. It's just super cliche and takes basic surface level concepts while propping them up as deep and meaningful when in reality they don't really do a good job of fully humanizing or justifying Lucy's actions from that point forward. There's a lot more pleasures in life than just going to the zoo. And considering the mass amount of brutality and just endless rape and gore we've been exposed to throughout this whole experience, you're gonna need to do better than that. Lucy asks him if he wants to go to a festival with her, and he says he's already going with his cousin, so she asks if this cousin is a boy or girl. Like, why do you care? They're cousins. Does Lino Komodo think incest is, like, normal and, like, celebrated? She literally almost kills him at the thought that his cousin might be a girl, so he says that they're a boy, and this was a necessary plot point that was absolutely integral to Lucy's story. Anyway, we're given a corny, albeit sweet scene to develop Koda's sister that I honestly wish was given to us much sooner, at least before learning that she was obviously killed by Lucy. I mean, this is all clearly a setup for that plot point, so it's just a bit obnoxious in retrospect. Like, oh no, she finds out that Koda lied and Yuka was actually a girl and now she's gonna throw a hissy fit and kill people at the festival or something. Like, I know that this is part of the Diclonia's thirst for blood, and I'm not expecting her to be rational. Like, I've seen people say that the Diclonias are like a commentary on racism, or something. And on the one hand, I see where they're coming from, but on the other, it spends all this time just basically showing you in every single way why Diclonius are terrible. And then when you see the fucked up shit that the government does to these Diclonius and the horrible things that happen to them because of the way they're born, you kind of get sympathy for them, but it's never made easy. Because the only Diclonius that is, like, taught not to kill is Nana, and even she turns at some points. I had a friend basically insinuate that the reason the Diclonius are the way that they are is because of the stupid-ass Neko ears in their fucking head, and it, like, does, like, brain damage shit, and it fucks them up. Kind of like a pit bull, where, like, pit bulls have, like, a kind of flawed brain structure or something. I don't know how it all works, but it's not impossible to teach pit bulls not to kill, just like it's not impossible to teach Diclonius not to kill. Although I more or less liken them to, like, psychopaths. Psychopaths, I mean, typically they're that way because of their childhood or the way they've been brought up. But if given the right teaching, they can learn not to be violent and still coexist with other people, even though they are literally not capable of empathy in any regard. And that's actually, like, a very interesting thing about Elfen Lied. That's the part of it that I found really interesting when I was younger. I thought it was really complex, and it had a very good point to make. I just think that the way it approaches this point isn't really cutting it, because all of the horrible things that happen are bad. Like, really bad, traumatic, horrible, just brutal, because that's what the series is known for. It's its main selling point, is how fucked up it is. But when it tries to be cute, when it tries to be, like, genuine, when it tries to be sweet, the only things it really bothers with are, like, just food, like cooking food and going to the zoo and small things like that. There's no focus on any sort of relief to be alive or just moments of pure love and adoration for others. Honestly, I wouldn't even be mad if there was, like, a whole beach episode, because they have a fucking beach, and we don't really get anything similar to that. And that's kind of just my issue with it now. I mean, in the past, my issue was that it felt manipulative, like emotionally manipulative, but I've kind of changed my perspective on that sort of thing. And now it's just the fact that it's so restrained whenever it's trying to have a positive message, but it just goes all out to be as fucked up as possible when it touches on the more cynical aspects of human nature. And this part that I'm rambling about, I didn't even script this. This is just me going off the cuff, because I've just been thinking about it a lot, and yeah, that's really, I think, honestly, my main issue with Elfen Lied and its approach at thematic storytelling. It's very disappointing in that regard. It's not impossible to make an irredeemable piece of shit a compelling character, so long as you have a way to make them easy to understand. Not necessarily relate to, but easy to understand. And the way Lucy is written, I would say that it's easier for a teenager to find her relatable than it is for an adult. And I mean, that just has to do with the fact that teenagers have this sort of main character syndrome, and they kind of believe that they're just so important, and they're also very overly dramatic, hence the attraction to gore and whatnot. But it's really disappointing to see that Lucy's backstory couldn't have been more than what it was, because there actually is the makings of a decent character here. And as I said, it's just disappointing to see the end result. Can't believe this was the moment that Lucy became the comedian. I will say that the art direction and detail have improved a ton, with the panels feeling segmented in a much more organized and interesting way. Entire pages are darkened to instill a sense of dread and get you to feel, or at least understand, what Lucy is feeling, so it's not, like, entirely unrelatable, it's just that the context is dumb. There's this entire artsy exchange in which the demons of Lucy's past convince her to kill Koda's family that I thought was actually pretty creepy, but admittedly in good taste. At least, in as much good taste as a backstory this dumb can possibly be. Lin Okamoto did practice and got pretty far with his skills, and I do have to commend him for that. It's just that the story is terrible. Anyway, Lucy kills a bunch of people at the festival, which is seen by Kanai, who also apparently saw the invisible arms somehow. Like, it's established that these arms are literally invisible, so I'm not really sure where this logic is coming from. I will say that, so far, Kanai is my favorite character because she kicks Yuka in the shin and calls her silly. But honestly, this is really weird behavior from a girl who just watched 4 people get ripped in half. She also just randomly says that she wishes that girl would just kill Yuka because she's jealous that Kota gave them more attention than her. But I guess we need some sort of contrived scenario to justify Kota saying he hates her right before she dies. Because this is the scene where Lucy comes on the train and kills both her and his dad. And he also hits her for telling him to run, which is a fucking bizarre reaction. Kota tackles Lucy and begs her to stop, and this would be a powerful scene if it wasn't so damn corny. Like, first and foremost, there's like a really terribly forced monologue explaining that Kota's last words to his sister were that he hates her. And like, putting aside already how forced and contrived the scenario of him telling her that even was to begin with, now we have the manga explaining itself to you why this is deep and tragic, actually. But beyond just that, Lucy says she wanted to hug him, which is so fucking funny to me. These characters are already so stupid, so I don't want to know what they're thinking. Anyways, Lucy stops the train, then goes to the edge of the cliff to cry, and then sucks her tears right back into her face, and grows her hair out. Oh wait, no, this is just a really poor transition back to the present. I do prefer this reveal in the anime because it happens when the stakes are already high and everything is going to shit. It just feels a bit early, is all. I mean, we're only on volume 4. After such an awful reveal, we return back to the present with Kota ecstatic to have finally found Miu. This exchange is a lot more vague in the anime and only really makes sense in retrospect when you have the full context, but now that it's just completely opened up to the reader, it doesn't leave as much intrigue. I will say that the page structure does a great job of emphasizing Lucy's guilt for hurting Kota, sins that stuck with her even despite the fact that they were impulsive decisions made by a child that was angry at the world for treating her unfairly. She almost confesses these sins to Kota and helps him to remember his past, but before it comes out, she conveniently turns back into Miu and all that tension goes away. I suppose I can understand it being too early, but if that really were the case, then why bother even showing this backstory now? I don't see any conceivable reason why this particular development has to wait while the backstory for Lucy just can't, aside from the fact that you made it obvious from the get-go. Chapter 40 has this super dramatic scene where Kurama is forced to kill Nana, and it's very sad and tragic, until it's revealed that she's actually alive. He literally has the monologue about how guilty he feels doing this, but if him giving her new limbs is any indicator, he isn't actually doing anything to her. I mean, at least this scene is believable in the anime, as she doesn't have her new limbs yet. Anyway, she wakes up on the beach and meets Bondo, and then he threatens Nana with a much stronger handgun. It's a pretty cool matchup, honestly, and I like this a lot because it puts into perspective how similar, yet different the two of them are. They're both victims by Lucy's hands. In a way, I think it would have been good to expand on this, possibly even make them rivals. Unfortunately, we put a pin in that so we can have some porn where Miu starts sexually harassing Yuka. Mayu also walks in on it and Miu just grabs her boob, refuses to elaborate, and fucking leaves. Yeah, there's not a point to this and I already bitched about it, so let's just move the fuck on. Bondo points out that this is the second time he's found a Diclonius on the beach. And I found this part interesting mostly because I was under the impression that Bondo just never left the beach and decided to stay there full time for some reason. Like, you don't really get to know much about him, like where he lives or what his life was like before all of this, and it's kind of a shame because there is the makings of a great character here, and even arguably a great rivalry against Nana. I'm actually quite frustrated at the results here, because on top of having such potential, this fight is actually pretty good. He displays clear racism against Diclonius, believing them to be subhuman creatures, and even agreeing with the idea of keeping them in prisons for experimentation. Nana, on the other hand, is desperate to prove that not all of them are like that, and is torn between retaliating in self-defense and staying true to what Kurama told her. Moments like this are exactly why I read this manga as a teenager. There's even this super hype part where Nana throws her fake arm at him in a fist, knocking the gun out of his reach, and Bondo just grabs another one and shoots her in the face, barely grazing her forehead. Save for the random panty shot, this part was fucking awesome, and Bondo is my goat. Then the fight just ends with a cute little moment where they establish a truce once he realizes they have a common enemy. This makes complete sense as well, because this fight gives him an opportunity to see how truly strong she is, which gives him the insight to use her strength to his advantage. They already set up a really good plot point. The thing is that a lot of the subtext in this chapter has the potential to be interesting. There's so many different perspectives, and so many different things that each of these characters could possibly bring to the table. And then the next chapter happens, and I remember why I hate this manga, because this woman wearing a diaper just starts living with Koda, and she has nothing to do with anything, like, at all. Seriously, this woman was cut from the anime because... I mean, firstly, it's fucking weird, but secondly, it doesn't even need to be here. Like, the story would not be any different without her. The only justification for this entire chapter is the end where the director shoots the stinky lady in his underground pond, which is kind of cool, I guess, but it's not really that interesting because he didn't exactly kill her. But it's like, now, this diaper bitch gets all the focus, and that's what the story's gonna exhaust itself with. It doesn't fit any of the themes present whatsoever. It's just a weird subplot that we're focusing on for no reason. And I'm not going to repeat myself anymore. You know how I feel about this. So what is the point in breaking it down? Like, anytime I run into these things, I think about all the arguments I got into with people about how the Elfen lead manga is actually better because it has more content. And this is the content that people are talking about. And every time I hear someone say that, I just wonder if they're even aware that this is the case, or if they're just saying that because manga's always better. Like, are you sure that this is better? Like, really? Like, are we 100% certain that this is absolutely imperative to the manga? I'm saying this as someone who analyzed The Boys and justified every gross and out-of-pocket moment in that series, even when it was gut-wrenchingly horrible. I am okay with a story getting weird, but there needs to be at least some justification for it to make sense. Otherwise, you're just wasting my time. Oh, also, Kurama's a fucking idiot, because he gave Nana all this money and didn't even leave a note telling her how to use it. And she gets hungry, this guy asks if she has any, and she says no, then she uses it for a fire. I will admit, it's funny, and it's obviously intended to be, so I can at least suspend my disbelief enough that I'll appreciate it from that angle. Regardless, Nana meets Mayu and is invited back at her house. Mayu expresses gentle envy at the fact that Nana has a guardian that cares for her, since up until recently that's a luxury she was never granted. She even feels apprehensive about the people she's with now, though this does make me question why she's just straight up inviting Nana into her new home willy-nilly. It's not like we have room for another, and Koda should already be 100% aware that the police are looking for New, so hiding not one, but two people with horns just doesn't seem like a very safe idea. The director shoots the stinky glasses woman in the arm, causing her to bleed out and almost die, and I'll say I was a bit surprised at how much more dramatic this scene was in comparison to how it was depicted in the anime. Like, obviously she's being interrogated for having seen the director's son's horns, but what the anime left out was this entire backstory of hers, detailing the moment she decided she wanted to be a scientist, where she had this desire to become important, rather than remain the nameless nobody she's always been. And I kind of like this, and I'm a bit underwhelmed by how vague it is in the anime. It's definitely a strong premise, as it gives her a motivation to help the director find Lucy. And when I see things like this, I do feel as if I understand a little bit why some people might defend the manga and claim that it's better than the anime. And then, like I said last time, right afterwards, Lucy sexually assaults Nozomi. No, really, I think it's great that Lucy is basically depicted as a horny pet that humps everything and is carried outside like a puppy. Really, it isn't like shitty or offensive in any way. Mayu takes Nana back home to meet New, but it goes horribly wrong when she recognizes her as Lucy and beats the fuck out of her, and everyone gets mad and kicks her out, so she goes and throws a hissy fit. Then Lucy actually wakes up and recognizes Koda, and the volume comes to an end. Honestly, I think the biggest problem with the manga of Elfen Lied and how it approaches characterization is that it's both inconvenient with the timing and incredibly cliche and tasteless. And I mean, obviously, edgy stories have to get a bit blunt to get their messages across, and there's points in stories I genuinely love, like Berserk of the Boys, that I feel take things a tad too far. It's an inevitability when telling stories like this, so it's hard to identify where the line should be drawn. That being said, Elfen Lied's biggest flaw is that it places too much stock in shock value and too little in relatability. It's less about the characters' past experiences shaping who they are today, and more about presenting a really terrible situation and going, yeah, that's pretty fucked up, isn't it? I have no denial that situations like this would ever happen, but it just feels disingenuous. There's no real message about animal abuse or bullying, it's just here to justify the actions of an impulsive serial killer. There's no real message about pedophilia or rape, because those things are totally okay when presented in a comedic fashion. And that is the main reason why it is so hard for me to like this manga, no matter how much I might try. We're given yet another flashback sequence with Lucy remembering how often she got sick as a kid back at the orphanage, seeing that even the adults didn't like her. Then we get a scene of her meeting the puppy, which doesn't benefit anything at this point. You already revealed this entire backstory, so why are we lingering on this at all? It just reaffirms my point that the anime had a much better handling of not only this backstory, but its placement in the series. I think the biggest strength of the anime is just its ability to portray these scenes in a much more sympathetic light. I'm not saying it's perfect, but take for instance Yuka seeing Niu hug Koda and getting mad for the millionth fucking time in a row. These repetitive aspects of the manga are not nearly as present in the anime. They are still here, but there's a theatrical element to them that at least makes it somewhat easier to understand her. Yet they're reiterated again and again, to the point that it's ridiculous. The biggest reason this video has taken so long to get out is because I have to meticulously take notes over it chapter by chapter, and my motivation dies a little bit more every day, because it's just the same problem constantly throughout the whole thing. Oh geez, I think Niu's gonna kill herself with those scissors, except she just cuts her hair to look like his sister. Man, you really threw me for a loop there, since she had it at her neck. Though, while we're on the topic of repetitive story beats, Koda takes her in, despite the fact that she literally assaulted a mentally disabled girl. Though he did too, in a much worse way. Isn't all of this starting to feel a little familiar? The only thing that would complete this structure is finding another person to send after Lucy, which is exactly what the director does. Except this one can reach her hands out for like 11 meters instead of just 2. Wow, that's cool, but also, why didn't you fucking do this from the get-go? Like, yes, I know that she's dangerous, but there's a bomb inside of her, and that ends up being the only way they can keep her from acting on her psychopathic urges. I mean, aside from the tube in her vagina. Oh my fucking god, bro.
Whoa, look at those.
By the way, they leave that in the anime, I hope you know that. While I'm making exceptions to things that I think the anime does worse, I'll admit that the moment in chapter 53 in which Mariko's strength is temporarily shown off is actually kind of stupid in that version, because it's so hyper-focused on making it as gory and brutal as possible. Mariko is greeted by a woman that used to comfort her with exclusively her voice in the same way that Kurama did, in the hopes that she'll trust her. But it backfires horribly with her ripping the woman in half and throwing her upper body into the nearby window to keep them from detonating the bomb. Unfortunately, the woman still ends up being alive, just long enough to press the button before she can hurt anybody else, then promptly dies. It's gruesome and brutal and a rather effective way of establishing Mariko as 10 times more insane and dangerous than any other Diclonius we've seen thus far. And in the manga, this is all very restrained. You actually don't see any organs or anything. The cuts are clean, and the impact comes from the shock value more so than the intensity of what happens. It looks a bit odd, but it's unbelievable, and I honestly find it a lot more cathartic and satisfying than the anime's iteration, in which you can clearly just see her organs flying out everywhere. Like, we're meant to believe she has the ability to press the button at this point. What is she even breathing into? Her lungs are gone. Oh, also, we're given more slice of life as Nana becomes accustomed to her new home and tries to overcome her trauma, which is really fucking backhanded given how insensitive the series has been towards victims of trauma up until this point, but at least they waste no time in uniting Mariko and Nana in a one-on-one duel, though I guess you could more accurately describe it as a fucking massacre. This is supposed to be like a really big moment for Nana, though it still doesn't exactly feel earned, because she barely knows these people, and their first impression of her is that she assaulted their housemate. Also, it's just obviously torture porn, given Mariko takes her clothes off and exposes her body before bashing her into the ground multiple times, but not without having her announce how embarrassing this is. Yeah, okay. Chapter 56 sees the immediate announcement that this new and powerful Diclonius is another daughter fill-in for Kurama, which might slightly explain the question I raised earlier about why he didn't just start with her, but it's not as shocking of a reveal as it could have been. Anyway, things get really rough for Nana as she's beaten ruthlessly and it almost seems like she's gonna die soon, but then she kicks it back into high gear with that same energy from before that she used to defend herself against Bondo. And it's a nice moment, but it also provides the viewer with an explanation for why it's deep given both of them are victims to the same man. I think this is more or less something that should have been set up ahead of time. Rather than have a character explain why it's deep, I feel like it would work better as a twist and let readers just realize the irony in retrospect. Also, why do we have a page showing Nana's head being cut off only for it to not even happen? I feel like there are less confusing ways to establish that Mariko's vectors are not working. Just like the following twist that actually this fucked up director guy is a Diclonius himself. In the manga, you don't even get to see his horns yet, he just mentions it casually like it's nothing. The anime attempts to fix this by at least showing his horns, but it's very last minute and doesn't go anywhere given the anime comes to an end right there. There's so many issues, especially since this is the climactic battle to indicate that you're halfway through your journey, but there is one genuinely good thing, that being Kurama's backstory. Kurama is a man who spent years of his life killing and torturing these Diclonius little girls. Time and time again, he had to tell parent after parent that he must kill their newborn before it becomes a threat, because to him, while these sacrifices were no doubt tragic, it was necessary for the greater good. The Diclonius is a race that is trying its absolute best to kill off all of humanity, so naturally he took the steps necessary to protect the human race by plucking it from its roots. If that meant a few heartbroken parents, so be it. But things changed when he himself became the parent of a Diclonius. He was touched by one, and now he is infected with the very same virus as many before. The ability to parent, the ability to raise a child into this world, has been taken away from him, just like he took that privilege from so many others. It's as if fate itself taught him a lesson and punished him for his sins. Now he has to reap what he sows, and needless to say, it's not a particularly easy decision to make. For that reason, Kurama is easily the closest thing to an actually brilliant character I can think of within the entirety of Elfen Lied. The choice Kurama makes is hypocritical, but I believe part of him regrets letting Mariko live. He didn't have the strength to kill her, but he knew that letting her live with him was not a possibility. He lost his wife when he tried to kill his own daughter, and he lost his right to raise her after all those other babies he murdered before. So if he can't muster up the strength to end her first life, he chooses to end her second, and imprisons her into a chamber, left as a forgotten secret that he chooses to ignore for years to come. But the pain of letting it all go, the guilt of leaving his daughter in that state was too much. So he used Nana as his replacement, and for a time it allowed him to cope with the loss of both his wife and the daughter that he was incapable of facing for so long. In a way, he probably saw his treatment of Nana as a way of trying to make up for his past mistakes. But I also think that he locked Mariko away to protect her as well, because Lucy had waged war on him after he mistakenly killed the only friend she had after the incident with Koda's parents. So Lucy swore vengeance, telling Kurama that she intends to kill every family member, every cherished friend he has left, in order to make him feel the same pain she felt. It's kind of surprising to think about in retrospect, and I can tell he definitely wanted to make Kurama a sympathetic, albeit imperfect, character. I have no complaints about this backstory or his dynamic because it makes perfect sense, and there's so much that can be taken away from it, especially with how it contributes to the theme of guilt. Kurama was a man who killed what he couldn't understand, only for his actions to be the very thing that took his own family away, much in the same way that Lucy was robbed of a normal family from childhood, and all the killing she did only ever made her feel more hollow and ashamed. The anime even includes a scene in which Kurama dies. The bomb inside of Mariko's body detonates, and the two of them grasp as they envision images of a life together that they could never have, and it truly puts into perspective how tragic it is. It's genuinely depressing and heartfelt, and it reminded me exactly why I cared about this series to begin with. The anime is sloppy in how it tries to quickly tie up all of these loose ends, while leaving some of them open because I guess they thought maybe they could get a season 2, and it never did. But the ending is genuinely brilliant. All throughout the series, Niu had been working on this clock that didn't work, which is something the manga did not have at all. Niu is so fascinated by this clock that she spends many points in the series just taking it apart and fucking around with it. And at the end, Lucy's fate is left open to her interpretation. But Koda hears a knock on the door from a girl, and before he can answer it, the clock's chime begins and the series comes to a close. We didn't get all the answers we wanted, but the open-ended mysteriousness of this final scene is genuinely amazing. It leaves it up to interpretation, and if you actually care about these characters and want to see them reunite, it feels like a warm and happy ending to an otherwise miserable story. But unfortunately, there is so much that never got addressed, and that's because this was filler. Yeah, none of that was canon, as awesome as it might have been.
Hi everybody, this is part 3 of Elfen Lied, the video essay. It's finally here, guys. We finally did it.
It's a little bit different, but it's here.
This is my friend Salt. This is the main reason it's been taking so long, is that I had to show him the anime series, and then now we're reading the manga together, and we're gonna do this kind of off the cuff a little bit, but yeah. You've probably also noticed the length of this video, and I do apologize. We had to split this into 2 sessions.
It's so bad.
I could not talk about this manga alone, because after the manga strays away from the anime series, it just gets worse. It just gets worse. It was not my intention for this video to take a whole year, but I actually wrote out an entire script for part 3, and then I was like, this is trash, dog. And so I decided I needed help. I couldn't do this alone. So Salt is my support for this mission.
It was painful, but I did support my buddy all the way through.
Also, should also be noted that the anime series the first episode of the anime series came out 20 years ago at the time of this video. Not at the time of us recording it, but at the time that you're seeing this video up on my channel. 20th anniversary, everybody. The studio that made Elfen Lied is dead. They
20 years of mid.
They disbanded, but Elfen Lied is now officially a classic. No. It's old enough to buy cigarettes.
One more year, and it can be able to drink.
So when I had left off, the last thing I had talked about was Kurama's backstory, and like the end of the anime, and there's a lot of things that the anime changes from the manga towards the end, and I think the main reason for that is because they knew they weren't going to get a season 2, but they still kind of left in some open-ended parts of the story. But a lot of the last episode of Elfen Lied is filler. It didn't happen. You made it up. You're crazy.
And it is somehow better than what happens in the manga.
Yeah. It's so funny because when we were watching the anime, Salt and our other friend Pasta Man, who I had in the same video, we're all just baffled, like, this is the worst fucking thing ever. And I was still trying to tell them, like, well, the manga's worse, and I don't think they fully internalized that until Salt read it today. And it's worse. It's fucking worse.
I felt uncomfortable reading it. Like, I just felt gross.
In this one, so they elaborate on why he chose the name Diclonius, and they elaborate on the horns. The reason they named it after a fucking dinosaur, it is actually named after the dinosaur. They say that in the manga, and they tell you outright it's because of the horns, which is so funny, because the Diclonius dinosaurs do not have horns. Well, or they do, but like...
It's not really a horn, and it's not really the same kind of horn.
It looks jarringly different.
If you told
it does
me
not even look the fucking same, bro.
That's not even the same placement on where the horn is at.
I guess we could talk about Kurama's backstory. I already did a whole spiel about it in the last video, talking about the anime's iteration. So I think we can talk about how the manga is different from Kurama's backstory. What differences did you notice?
Okay, Kurama's wife is more prevalent.
So yeah, she plays a bigger role, but that's also to the whole thing's detriment, because she's like a fucking sheet of paper.
Yeah. It's also a little bit tonally less serious.
It's harder to take seriously, yeah, and the tragic parts are just like, here's the thing, what the anime has over this is that the sad moments are, at least there is some sort of emotional appeal, even when the context for why is dumb. You do feel it, kind of. Like, it was very good. I think the music was mainly why. The background music was pretty good when it wasn't playing Lilium every other fucking 5 seconds. And the presentation was just a lot more theatrical and a lot more dramatic. But in the manga, this manga is not very good at drama. It's not. And this is also a good indicator as to why. Like, I think part of it is that the dialogue is so much more wordy. Like you had said, there's so much fucking talking multiple times as we were reading this.
Yes, exactly. Like there's full pages where like I'm pretty sure like 20% of the page was just words. Like that's a pretty good amount.
It's mucho texto, the manga. But it's just so much less subtle. It's more overdone. There's like this part where he starts like screaming and we both like burst out laughing. It's supposed to be like a sad moment, but we both burst out laughing because it's just so over the top for no reason.
Yes, and also when you do see Kurama's wife die again, it's totally different from the anime, and it's just like the face she does in the manga it just comes up more funny than anything.
Well, a lot of that's the fault of the art style. But it's like, I think another thing is like, this manga is very bad at shifting tone. It's like he can't really figure out how to balance comedy and drama, so he kind of mixes the two together, and what you get is just complete tonal whiplash during chapter transitions or during like a very serious moment, but then we throw in a stupid little fucking gag where someone's being autistic. Like,
and panty shots.
Yeah, that too. A lot of needless, unnecessary panty shots. But I mean, that's like most anime these days. An example is like in the anime series, you have this really, really good scene where Kurama reunites with his daughter, and then the bomb inside her goes off, and they hug tightly, and like for a brief glimpse, he imagines the family together that they never had. And the manga does this too. Not quite the exact same, but we do get a moment where you get to see a brief glimpse of Kurama's family in the anime, and the family he never got to have. And it's like, the whole thing is just Mariko yapping a lot. Like, she just won't shut up. Like, going on and on and on. And that's the thing. Is not confident in its writing. It has to tell you how to feel. It has to tell you the depth behind everything. It writes like a 10-page essay about everybody and just says it out loud, and it's not endearing writing. Basically, like, what's happening is they send out Mariko to go hunt down Lucy, and it's revealed that actually no, Mariko is Kurama's daughter, and she reunites with Kurama and learns about this, and then she's upset because Kurama abandoned her, and she spent her whole life in a dark fucking cellar.
Borderline a dungeon.
Yeah. Now it's basically her throwing a hissy fit, fighting against all the soldiers. They can't wrangle her. The guy that has the remote for her bomb, like, is basically held hostage. And Bondo comes in. He tries to stop Mariko. And so it's like Bondo versus Mariko. This part, honestly, was sick as hell. And I remember both of us fucking shouted in, like, hype.
Yeah, Bondo is easily also the best part of the manga. So what happens is that Bondo shoots an RPG at Mariko, and I think she grabbed the rocket with her vectors, right?
Yeah.
But then Bondo pulls out a pistol and shoots the RPG missile. It's
just
so
to set off
good.
An explosion, like, right next to her. It doesn't kill her, which I thought was bullshit. But, like, you know, there are points, and this was not in the anime. That's what's also frustrating to me, is that we don't at least get to see Bondo do that shit. Because there are a lot of points where Bondo just locks the fuck in, and it's awesome. Right after that moment, while we're on the topic of fucking tonal whiplash, okay, admittedly, it's not entirely the manga's fault, because the site we were reading this on, it moved us forward a chapter, and then we read through that part, and then it like went back, and then we read the same part again by accident. I don't know what happened or what the site was cooking there, but
yeah, it felt like weird. Like, wait a minute, is he explaining the past that just happened like 5 minutes ago or something? Or
but there's like this whole part where Mariko talks to the guy who has the detonation thing. And it's so fucking dumb. It's so dumb. We saw it was like predictable as hell. She's like feeling around in his crotch area, and he's like, "What the fuck?" And then there's like a dialogue about where they're talking about his penis or whatever. And then, but really, what she ends up doing is she tries to manipulate him by saying like, I want to live, tell me the number, and he tells her the number, but actually she didn't have his best interest in mind. She ends up killing him.
She has this stupid freaking smug face, and like that is somebody's profile picture right there. I don't have the picture on me, but you can tell that's somebody's profile picture.
A lot of this will be up on the screen as we.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, this whole fucking like everyone versus Mariko thing. It's so just random. Like just shit happens. Cause like there's a part where like, you know, we have that same scene I was talking about where Kurama and Mariko they hug, and you know they're close together, and he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to abandon you, and then she gets hit with a missile, but he doesn't. And
the missile doesn't even explode.
The missile doesn't even explode. It like lands on top of her, and then another missile comes down and hits him. But he's alive because she used her vectors to save him, even though she got hit with it first. And then she's alive because she used her vectors to save herself, and she starts meowing like New does. And it was so funny, like, because I saw it coming, I knew it was gonna happen. And then Saul, like, we got to that page, and Saul was like, "What are you laughing about?" And then
I was like, Gabe was asking me, "Hey, Saul, just guess what's gonna happen?" And I was like, "I don't know, man." Like, she goes gamer or something, and then she said, "Mia," and then I just slammed my desk like this. No, I am leaving. I am leaving.
It was so fucking dumb. Like, what doesn't make sense about this whole stretch is like, she got hit first with a missile, and then he got hit second, but he was saved from her vectors. And she was also saved from her vectors. But when the missile hit her vectors didn't work anymore. So how does any of this make sense? How did this happen? Right? Like, she should be dead, so she can't use her vectors to save herself. What was even the point of these missiles? Why are the missiles even here in the first place if they didn't even work?
But it's just like, was there not enough force or something?
It's so fucking ridiculous. And you know, like, after that, then Kurama's like, now seeing that she's gone cat mode, Kurama's like, never mind, she needs to die, and he tries to kill her, but then Nana's like, no, don't kill your daughter. But it's like this corny ass scene where she's like, no, don't kill, you're not a killer, even though you killed like a shit ton of babies, but that's, you know, whatever. And then you remember director Kakuzawa, the old man?
Yeah.
He didn't get much time to shine in the anime. We got a reveal that he had horns at the last episode, but that didn't go anywhere. And it never got a season 2, so a lot of people kept wondering what this guy's cooking, what's going on with him, why is he like this, what are we gonna do about him? The manga, honestly, made him one of my favorite characters. Primarily just because of how funny he is. He's like cartoonishly evil. And
he has such funny faces. He's so unhinged.
So basically, we learn that he's got this plan where he intends to... He has the Diclonius virus in a missile. And we also learn about his daughter. We're going to talk about his daughter here in a minute. But he has a missile that's filled with the Diclonius virus, and he intends to release the virus out over the city. He's a Diclonius, but he's a male Diclonius, so he doesn't have the vectors, he doesn't have the pink hair, but male Diclonius still have that, like, desire to kill. And he intends to take over the human race and let Diclonius prevail, but in order to do that, he needs Lucy. So he sends this fucking missile filled with the virus. It's going to explode, and then the missile's going to infect everybody, and then the Diclonius, you know, all their children will be Diclonius. It's a smart plan. The only issue is that he doesn't have Lucy in his possession, and he still sends the missile. Like, they're too late to stop it.
Yeah, and also, I can't remember the explanation why. Like, why was he killing his own kind again, only for this to be, like, the big reveal?
It's not really explained. I'm kind of just assuming that he was trying to gain the trust of the military in order to give him, like, work up the ladder, get to the top, and get the funding for this. kind of like a necessary like sacrifice of like, I just have to pretend I'm on their side long enough until I can get the resources I need. The only issue I have is that he sent out the missile exploded, and he didn't even have Lucy in his possession yet, which is an insanely irresponsible way to do this. Like, you should at least wait until you absolutely have her in your possession. Otherwise, you're just putting yourself in the fucking corner.
This felt too early to do, honestly.
Yeah, it was, and don't get me wrong, it was a good segment. I loved his, like, speech when he was telling the stinky glasses girl, I don't even know her name, I think it's like Arakawa or some shit.
Yeah.
He was telling her about this whole thing, and because she was also pretending like she was going along with this. And he was telling her this whole fucking virus plan, and it was honestly, it was a fun monologue. It was very unhinged. He felt very comically evil. And he's a very interesting character, to be honest. He's very much like seinen villain. But I don't know. It did feel like this came a little too early.
Yeah, there could have been like a more interesting plot, like the characters find out about the virus missile and it's still being under construction, but like they have to stop it like near the end of the series, and it's just like, this is a little early to do this.
So I talked about Arakawa, but she's like one of there's another girl that wears glasses that's not Arakawa, who is also just a slab of concrete in terms of characterization. Her entire character is that Kurama dumps a bunch of exposition on her. You probably don't even remember her, but she had brown hair. She didn't have black hair like the stinky one.
I'm pretty sure she had brown hair in the anime, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. And so we also learned that she kind of prostitutes herself to director Kakuzawa.
Oh,
There's
yeah,
like
that one.
There's like a scene where he's like fingering her, and
we skipped it.
But she's basically like prostituting herself to him with the intention of stopping him, I guess. She's trying to get close to him and stop him by using her body or something like that. The detail, that's the thing, is like this anime or this manga presents a lot of ideas, but it never actually like gives them depth. And so that's kind of revealed randomly, and then she's present at the scene with the whole situation with Mariko, where Mariko is she killed the guy in charge of the cell phone thing, and now she's trying to deactivate the bomb. Niu and Koda, or Nana's at the scene, so Niu and Koda go after Nana, and they arrive at the scene, and Niu shows up. Niu, I think, hits her head. She turns into Lucy, and there's like a ton of issues in this whole fucking fight. But it's basically, yeah, like I said, everybody versus Mariko. Kurama is hoping to save Mariko, and it's kind of just this issue of like, whoever gets the phone wins. And I mean, there's a ton of nitpicks that we could say about this. I remember you said something about there was somebody holding an MP5.
Yeah, he was holding an MP. I mean, oh wait, no, that was Kurama doing that.
Yeah,
okay.
Kurama
holds an MP5 like a freaking pistol, even though you're supposed to hold it with both hands, and he just holds it like a pistol.
Mariko, now that she's lost her horns, is suddenly good now. She's developed this like second personality, kind of like Niu, and she's good now. She's switched sides. She's not a psychopath wanting to kill everybody anymore. And
it's just like, what the fuck?
I don't know.
Why is she...
It's so back and forth. It's like you're keeping up with so many different things, and the scene can barely contain all of it. It's kind of just falling apart. But yeah, it's basically now a fight to save Mariko rather than kill her. He's not good at writing fight scenes. We talked about how Kurama holds the MP5 wrong. That was a nitpick. There was also the fucking part earlier that I didn't write down, but that I want to mention. Before Mariko had lost her horns, when she tried to kill Nana, so there's like a page in which Nana's head is taken off. And then, like, it turns out, no, she didn't actually take her head off because her horns aren't working. So it's like he's not good at conveying, like, stuff accurately. It's very needlessly confusing and hard to keep up with. And especially with this whole thing, it's like, I don't care about Mariko. So, but now all
Yeah,
of a
she
sudden,
was like introduced like only a couple volumes ago. Like,
she hasn't been in it very long at all. But yeah, now we have to save her, and now we're rooting for Kurama and the brown-haired glasses girl, who I couldn't even tell you what her fucking name is. And so now the fight is between Mariko and Lucy. They're fighting over the cell phone, and Lucy's trying to guarantee Mariko's death. I really don't know what Lucy's fighting for here, to be honest, aside from, I guess, she's trying to kill off Kurama's family, just like Kurama killed off hers. But the thing is, like, at this point in the manga, that hadn't really been revealed yet. So a lot of the time, it's like she's just kind of being aimless. I kind of wish that the backstory with the girl had been revealed alongside the Coda backstory, rather than way, way later in the manga. And everybody's trying to sacrifice themselves. Every fucking 10 seconds, you got some person be like, no, I will do it. Like Kurama, like Nana, like trying to push everyone aside and just be like, I will be the self-sacrificing hero. I'll do it. Even Mariko, I think, does it. But the point where it's like it got most ridiculous was that the fucking glasses girl, she basically runs at Lucy, grabs the phone out of her hand, and then tries her best to throw it to Kurama and tells him the code, but then Lucy just destroys it and kills her. And it's kind of laughable how just completely pointless her whole existence as a character even is. She doesn't even successfully pull off the plan that she gave her fucking life to do. And this is like the closest thing to a meaningful moment she gets this entire fucking series. Up till now, she has been a slab of fucking concrete. She hasn't contributed anything to the story at all.
Okay, and wait, I also gotta mention this. Lucy is not as threatening in the manga compared to the anime. I don't know, like...
Yeah, the issue mainly boils down to she's just kind of obnoxiously evil in the manga versus in the anime, where she's very quiet and misunderstood, supposedly.
Yeah, and also the art style just does not help.
And basically what this is leading up to is, now that Mariko's blown up, everybody leaves, and, like, Bondo's like, we need to get out of here. Bondo takes Nana, and they leave, and then it's just Kurama, and he shoots himself in the head. And it's like, this whole fucking scenario where we just drag out, like, a shit ton of, like, bullshit, like, with the missile, with Lucy coming in and fighting Mariko, the fight for the cell phone, where the glasses girl tries to save the day, but it doesn't work, and Mariko blows up. All of this, like, literally, this could have just ended with the missile.
Yeah,
like,
this all happens in one volume, and Kurama's death gets dragged for a whole volume.
Yeah, it stretched out for an entire fucking volume, and it just did not need to be. We added in a ton of this extra shit that meant nothing, bro. It was so dumb. And then, of course, the volume ends with a cliffhanger showing the embryo of a god that would be Kakuzawa's daughter, which is something we learn about in the next couple volumes, and it's another concept that I thought was really interesting. So in the next volume, it kind of starts off like a Big Bang Theory episode, where it's like you're expecting you to apply, reintroduces all the characters, and reintroduces as well all of the obnoxious jokes that this series has spammed over and over again, where they like literally they tell so basically at this point, I think this is like a time skip, like a few months later, Niu has gained intelligence. She can speak now. And they start telling her in great detail the way that she used to act beforehand, where she used to grope everybody and she peed on the floor. And it's like, it wasn't funny the first time. And now they're like telling you again, just in case you forgot that it was the funniest fucking thing ever.
And also, I kind of noticed something about like this whole like, this kind of like slice of life segment. Nobody talks like this.
It's very, very unnatural dialogue. It's very ham-fisted and kind of just
I
lazy.
woke up today and I need to feel like I took a shit. Nana must have known I must have not liked taking a shit. Nobody talks like this.
So that's definitely part of it, is that the slice of life elements, it's like, I guess he thinks this is funny, and it's very much not. The comedy is very lazy. The comedy is very, I mean, a lot of it's just dependent on his own personal fetishes, but it's super forced. It's super tacky. And it's just generic as hell. While we're seeing this like slice of life thing, you're also learning more about Director Kakuzawa and his daughter, who I guess is a fucking goddess. She's like a big blob where she's got uneven eyes, and
one points up vertically and the other one just points horizontally.
Yeah, and
God.
It's actually interesting. I actually was invested. Basically, he turned his daughter into a god, and you don't even get to know how, like what the process of turning her into a god even was. You just get to hear her point of view, where she's a naive young child who wanted to do her best, and she wanted to impress her father, so she goes through with the operation, but starts to have second thoughts as she realizes this might be too much for me to bear. But she goes through with it anyway. And you don't even get to see the process. It's like actually subtle. It leaves it up.
Yeah,
it's like a cosmic horror element of like fear of the unknown.
Yeah. I actually was impressed by that a little. Oh, we're actually not seeing it. That's actually pretty good.
It's like leaving it up in the air. And I kind of wish there was more of that in this series, but the way things stand, it's a mess. Either way, so his daughter is basically the embryo of a god, but her body's so massive. I mean, she's just a fucking floating brain in a lake, and he can't comprehend the things that she comprehends, but she has glimpses of the future. She's able to comprehend the future, kind of. So director Kakuzawa, basically the way this series has run up until this point, if you haven't picked up on the structure, is Kakuzawa needs Lucy, so he sends someone to go find her. First it was Bondo, that didn't work. Then it was Nana, that didn't work. Then it was Mariko, that didn't work. So now he's sending two more people. The stinky glasses lady and a guy who literally does not even have a name. You're gonna see why he doesn't have a name here in a minute, but he kind of looks like Alucard, and he's got these like electric shockwave spike balls that he shoots out of a gun.
Yeah, I have a crossbow, yeah. And as soon as I saw him, like, yeah, this man has just edged the character.
It's just completely like just Lin Okamoto's edgy OC.
Like, his whole posture is just edgy.
Basically, the way it's framed is they make a deal where they're both sent to go capture Lucy. Which it's also dumb. It's like, you're going to send this hardened bounty hunter who's got the equipment to take on a fucking Diclonius with, like, clearly he's got, like, combat experience. And then you're also going to send a scientist lady who smells bad.
Oh my god, yeah.
And these are the two you're going to pin up against each other and be like, which one of you are going to find Lucy first?
It's just like, why are you relying on the girl that can't even take a shower?
And like, so basically they make a deal where he's like, well, if I find her first, you have to be my pleasure slave. And again, it's like, this is completely pointless. This adds nothing to the whole thing. And then she's like, well, if I win, you have to cut your dick off. And so they agree to it. They shake hands and they're like, let's go get this bread, gamers. And they go out to go look for Lucy. So we go back to the slice of life elements from before. Fucking Bondo's upset that he can't jack off with his metal arm. And here's the thing, right? Like, we had a time skip for like 6 months. This guy has been on this fucking beach this entire time for 6 months, probably longer, getting all of the stuff off the beach so he could, once Lucy shows up again, like, he claims he's searching for Lucy. He's not searching for Lucy. He's been sitting on the fucking beach this whole time, and it's like, get off the beach, dude!
And
Go
like,
out and look for her, you idiot!
I'm pretty sure the setting of this place is an island. Like, there's not that much to look, bro. It's not that hard to find.
So, essentially, like, the complex is that Mayu's been paying him regular visits, but she's been intentionally, like, keeping Lucy away from the beach, making sure she doesn't show up on the beach. During that whole battle of before, Lucy's horns have been gone. Like, she lost her horns as well, so she's basically stuck in this form. But they've been slowly growing back. Also, while we're on the topic of, like, reveals, Kurama's still fucking alive. Bondo has been taking care of him on the beach, and he's been in a tent. And I guess he's grown a beard, he doesn't look so good. He's kind of lost his mind. Like, the bullet didn't even kill him, it just fucked up his brain.
It's just like, I guess he just lost a part of his brain, and
Now,
he's still alive.
There was a funny part that came up shortly after this, in which Salt, like, it showed this building, it showed the college building that Koda and them go to, and Salt was like, the stinky lady's about to show up, isn't she? And then she shows up, and we both burst out laughing, because it's like, bro, you could smell her through the pages. Like, holy shit.
Like, to be fair, it was the college building, and she works there, and I was like, oh, okay. Like, have you still not taken a shower? You've had all this time to. What the hell?
So, and again, it's just fetish shit this way. They say it so fucking many times. It's like, I want to take a shower. I still hope I can find the time to take a shower. So when we and my friends covered the anime series, Pastaman had a compliment for it, that being a consistency in the way that Koda handles his trauma. Whenever he completely forgot about what happened to his sister because his brain had filled in the dots with a lie. And the same thing happened again in the anime, and I think this one too, where he sees director Kakuzawa, the son, the younger one. He sees his severed head, and he doesn't tell Yuka.
Remember.
He doesn't tell Yuka about it because his brain immediately forgets it, and then he's like, "Nothing, I'm fine." And it was like a subtle little way of establishing that his amnesia, like his brain, protects him with amnesia. It seems like we forgot about that because he remembers what happened to in the manga. He remembers what happened to Kakuzawa pretty fucking well. He remembers him almost instantly. And then we get this whole thing where he and Arakawa run into each other, and she's like, "Oh shit, there you are." And they do this like MCU dialogue thing where they literally outright say, "I hope we won't run into that assistant," and then immediately run right into her. It's the most fucking MCU dialogue bullshit ever. She also uses the word hella later, which is really disorienting and strange, but I feel like a lot of this could just be the fault of translation. I don't know. This whole scene sucks. There's like a part where he just blatantly sexually harasses her as a diversion, or like, he essentially tells her that she has big boobs. Yeah, really fucking endearing dialogue. It's just so riveting. I'm losing my mind, bro. Anyway, he like sexually harasses her as like a diversion, as a distraction, to get the others to run away with Lucy. And she eventually like takes Niu hostage, and she's like, "Where is Lucy?" And it's like she's fucking holding her hostage right there, and they're like, "Huh?" And then she sees the fucking tiny little horns. We get a panty shot for no reason, because again, it's fucking Lin Okamoto, he's a freak. And yeah, it's so dumb. Like it's like an actually tense moment, a serious moment, and it's just treated like a joke where she's like, "I'm gonna take Lucy hostage," and then she finds out it's Lucy, and she's like, "She has to come home with me," and they're like, "No, that's not gonna happen." And it's like, I don't know, this is kind of a serious situation, right? Like, you're harboring a wanted criminal, and we're treating this like this big comical exchange. And it would be better if it was at least funny, but it's not funny.
Hey guys, I don't know if you can tell this. Len doesn't know how tone works.
We also become privy to the fact that she's apparently a virgin. I don't know why we needed to know that, but yeah, she's a virgin. Probably because she smells so fucking bad. So then we go back to the bounty hunter guy, or the fucking whatever. I don't even know his fucking name. We're just gonna call him Alucard, since Lin was so fucking lazy, he didn't even give him a fucking name.
Alucard from Helsing.
That, for real. But literally though, like... so they give him like a free Diclonius because, as we established, Diclonius, they have Saiyan powers where they can sense other Diclonius. And he's going to use her as like a GPS. And there's like this part where he's like, he basically rapes her, but it's like you don't see it. Which is different. Up until now, you've had to see most of the bad shit, but this time you don't, which is...
Len Komodo restraining himself? That's a new one.
Lin Okamoto, you flipping, hecking
Do you think
groiper.
Do you think I'd give a shit about this man that I want? Like, I mean, game end?
Like, okay, first of all, this guy not having a name, like I said, it's like... It just shows that Lin didn't even try with this character. He literally couldn't even give him a name. He just wanted to write the edgiest possible villain with no purpose outside of that. Like, he just wanted to make... And that's the whole thing. This guy is a murderous, crazed fucking freak.
Rapist.
He's a freak. He's a fucking freak, okay? He's over here stroking his dick. Literally. Like, he like I said, he rapes the Diclonius that they give him. And then hooks her up to like some sort of fucked up briefcase torture device where I guess her spine is and in order to keep her from using her vectors, she's injected with pain whatever's like I don't know if it's like poison or what, or like shock or whatever, but it's like a torture device where she's in constant pain that does not stop, and he just carries her around like a fucking object. And it's like,
I guess that's representative of how Len sees women.
I mean,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm gonna try not to take too many digs at Lin, but bro, it's hard because it's fucking...
Like, it's kind of hard. It's really hard not to make fun of him, honestly.
What I hate most about this is, like... Okay, there are very few things in the series that actually did disturb me. A lot of the time I was laughing my ass off when people would get torn to shreds or whatever. And the lolly stuff, it made me uncomfortable, but I knew about it going in because I watched this when I was like 13. But like, this part actually did just make me just blatantly uncomfortable, and it was like just edgy as fuck. Where it's like... Honestly, you could have come up with literally any other thing, but he just has this Diclonius that gets... And you don't know anything about the woman. You just know that she gets tortured and used as a fucking GPS. And she brings him to Nana. He shows up at the Kaide house, and there he is with Nana, and he gets angry. He kicks the fucking GPS woman and kills her, essentially. So now he doesn't have her in his pocket. But on top of all of that, like, you're also like, they let you know, he did rape her. He proudly proclaims that he raped her before all of this torture shit happened. And I don't know, it's just like, that's a little edgy, dog.
Oh my, okay, yeah, that actually freaking reminds me how this man works. He has to explain everything he does in excruciating detail, like everything. And I think that kind of adds to like what Len wanting him to be like the edgiest character possible.
And there's some good ideas here. I love the fucking crossbow he has with the electric spike balls, but the fucking over-explaining, dude. Like, I know this happens a lot in anime, but it's like he proudly announces to you just how much of a rapist he is, and it really does just feel like, hate this guy. Do you hate this guy yet? Do you hate him? Do you hate this guy? Like, he's just fucking...
I already hated him the first instant he showed up on screen. You don't need me to make him hate...
It's more accurate to say, like, you can put, like, you can have an irredeemable villain who is just literally, like, a shallow, like, just mindlessly evil guy who loves, you know, he masturbates to genocide or whatever. That's, you can have that. It's just like, it's more irritating that Lin feels the need to repeatedly, obnoxiously just be like, but just in case you forgot, this guy really sucks. Just in case you forgot, here's how I'm going to tell you in great detail how much this guy sucks, so you don't forget. And it's just, I don't know, it's that lack of confidence in his writing where he feels the need to explain everything to you that I just makes this such a pain to read. And so he comes in, he fights Nana, his shock thing, it has like a poison thing in it, like if you get hit with it, the poison slowly takes effect and it weakens you. So he weakens Nana with it, and then he kicks Mayu's dog. So there's more dog, like, edgy, like, I don't know what it is with Lin and fucking dog abuse, but that seems to be one of his go-to tricks for
It's just a really easy way to make you hate a guy again. It's just like, we already hated him, stop this.
And it's the reason, it's another, like, it's an easy way to make you feel sorry for Lucy, is that, oh, her dog died. I love dogs. Dogs are so cute. How could they do this? Like, I don't know. It's such a cartoony-ass way to make a fucking villain. And then we skipped this part, because again, I hate this manga, but he tries to rape Mayu.
And we skipped that whole segment because I don't want to watch it. Now let's get on to the good part.
So, back in the anime, and this never got the payoff that it was implemented for. We remember when Bondo was upset that Mayu saved him because he didn't like owing her favors, so he says, hey, whenever someone's giving you trouble, call me and I'll come save you. This is what that was for. That was like setting up for this. So he comes in, and as the guy's about to fucking go on a private flight, he comes in, he kicks him, calls him a pedo. He's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And, you know, just based Bondo, just being based.
He kicked him through the door, and it's so awesome. I love Bondo.
Fucking goated, bro. And what's so fucking cool, I mean, we get yet another rundown of these fucking horns, because Bondo didn't hear the spiel, so we have to hear the guy explain how the fucking, not horns, fucking spike balls work. We have to get this whole spiel about that shit again, like we didn't get it the first time. But what happens is he shoots Bondo with it. Bondo's like, and then it looks like he's about to continue what he was doing, but then Bondo rips it out with his bare hands and then rears back and throws it at him like a fucking baseball.
You want to know what would have been made this better? Like, he throws the ball at his dick. That would have been so much better.
That would have been the best, actually. And the guy gets hit with his own fucking, basically gets a taste of his own medicine, and then he runs away. And then Bondo saved the day. He's my goat. He's the best fucking part of this manga. I am noticing, like, we've said that the action scenes in this series suck, but not with Bondo. With Bondo, it's like Lin actually took the effort of trying to come up with something really, really cool. And so Bondo gets to do all the fucking badass shit while everybody else, it's so lame.
I'm just now realizing the weaker you are, and if you're actually capable of fighting, the better fight scene you're gonna have.
Now, I typically don't skip things when I review it. I try to consume all of it as elegantly as I can. We did get a couple of Nozomi backstory chapters. They were like extra chapters, and we skipped them because I don't care. Nozomi wears diapers and sings a lot, and the manga would not be any different without her. So we skipped that because I'm not actually interested in even bothering with them. You can understand the manga without reading them. They add nothing to the narrative. So just telling you now, we skipped that part. So we're going to jump to the next volume. And so the weirdest part about that is that was like literally like smack dab in the middle of the Bondo fight. Like, because the fight's not over, right? Like, it just stops for a little bit. And then we get this like random ass backstory for Nozomi. And then we go back to the Bondo fight.
It's just like, what the fuck?
So apparently he finally runs into New. He gets angry at Mayu. He's like, you have been keeping this secret from me? I never want to talk to you again. And we're like supposed to care. And But anyway, Lucy, her horns at this point have grown back, and she is no longer mentally impaired. She's back to the Lucy that we know. I mean, she's still mentally impaired, but I mean, you know. And again, like, with the fucking dialogue-heavy bullshit, like, Bondo goes on a speech about how, I've been waiting for this day. I've been waiting a long time. It's like, bro, we know why you hate Lucy, okay? We hate Lucy, bro. Like, you don't have to give us this whole spiel again. And I remember there was this part where I think they're like, call the police, and then Bondo's like, I am the police, and it literally just made me think of the fucking part from Star Wars. Is like, I am the Senate.
Not yet.
What?
Oh wait, no. I was doing a.
I don't have anything good to say about this volume either, except for Coda getting the shit beat out of him by Bondo. He's like trying to stop him. He's like, no, don't fight Lucy, because Lucy's like, all right, you want to fight? Let's fight. I'll meet you over here on this part of the beach. And then Bondo's like ready, but they're all trying to stop him. Nana's trying to stop him. Mayu's trying to stop him. Coda's trying to stop him, but he fucking beats the shit out of Coda and just knocks him onto the fucking ground. And it's like, let's go. This is the best character, bro. He is the best. And I mean, it's just forced. It's like very, very forced drama. Nana's like angry at herself and starts hitting her head. Like,
okay. Also, I gotta explain this as well. Like, well, during the fight, Lucy like can't reach Bondo because it's 2 meters and her vectors have 2 meters, but she just stands still in the same place the entire time. Just like, move forward, dipshit!
So as we had established, Bondo and her fight on the beach. He basically goes on and on, jerking off about how he stayed on this beach, got rid of everything on the beach, all the debris and all this extra shit, so that he could finally see this day again, where he could fight Lucy one more time. And honestly, again, it's pretty sick, because he's like coming at her, and, you know, really fighting her, and she's like using her invisible hands, but he's fucking dodging it, and I mean, it's bullshit, because it's like, how the fuck, this is so dumb, but he's dodging her invisible hands. He's just him. He's him. Bondo is him. He gets the better of her. I think he like blinds her. I don't know if he got like dirt in her eyes.
Flashbang.
Yeah, he used a fucking flashbang, right, and blinded her so that he could finally kill her. And, you know, right as he's about to get his moment of glory, Mayu steps in, and we get yet another fucking scene, like the fucking one with Nana and Kurama we had, like, not last volume, volume 7, where it's like, Bondo, you're not a killer, don't do this. It's like, bro, he has killed people, bro. Like, he is a killer. Don't fucking do this.
He is a mercenary, bro.
Let him cook. And it's like, I think part of it is like, this is supposed to be a climactic battle. This is the moment we've all been waiting for. Finally, Bondo getting his revenge against Lucy. And this fight gets interrupted like 7 times. When it's not Mayu, it's like Coda. When it's like not Coda, it's Nana, or it's, you know, more monologue of Bondo being like, oh yeah, I'm so ready to kill you, bro. I'm so ready. Let's do this. And, you know, it's like,
just get on with the fight.
There's also this part where the pedophile guy comes back, and he's like, no, don't kill Lucy. She's the goddess of the new generation. Lucy, I will be your eyes. I will assist you. And she does the most based thing ever. Immediately is like, I am not affiliated with you, and kills him.
Rips his head off and throws the head at Bondo.
So, yeah, and that's probably the most based thing Lucy's done all manga. Either way, she gets her eyesight back. It's time for round 3, I guess. And then it's like framed in a way where, you know, she's finally ready, and then Mayu is like, no, and then it looks like she kills Mayu. Like, you just see her standing in front of Mayu, and then you see the blood, and we were like, oh, did Mayu just die? That's pretty fucked up.
Can I rant about this, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, and then next chapter, nope, it wasn't Mayu. It was Bondo. Like, yeah. He saves Mayu last second. It's just, no. This is the thing Len does. He always does like fake deaths at the end of a chapter. It's just like, stop. You've done You've done this like what 3 times now?
Yeah, he's very over reliant on that trick. But no, it's Bondo, and then we finally get to see Bondo's backstory. It wasn't much of one. We kind of brush over like, yeah, I was raised to be a soldier, and I wanted to kill.
I'm pretty sure like a lower part of his spine got cut off, and you see his guts too. It's like how is he still alive?
And then fucking, it's so funny. It's like the most unintentionally. It's the most unintentionally funny death scene because he's like yelling at like he's still being Bondo essentially, like yelling at her like fuck off bitch, and he's just being really fucking goofy.
God.
Mayu fucking kisses him on the lips.
And Len ruined the best character's death scene. He ruined it.
We gotta find this man. I just want to talk. I just want to talk.
Yeah, I just want to talk, man.
I just want to have a chat. I just want to speak.
I just ignore the baseball bat with the spikes on it and the shotgun. Just ignore that.
Ignore the crossbow with spike balls that shoot poison. And it's like after this chapter, after we get this, like first and foremost, like even if, and I know that Bondo did not consent to the kiss and he didn't kiss her back. In fact, he was like, "What the fuck?" This is still not okay to include, because it's like you're now expecting us to have some sort of shipped relationship with like Bondo and Mayu, and this is not okay. Like this is still, and the main reason is because this completely not only ruins Bondo's character, it ruins Mayu's, because the entire point of her character was that she was a victim of sexual assault. And, it was commentary on pedophilia bad. He just called that guy a pedophile like a few chapters ago, right? Like, he was just condemning that guy for being a pedophile. Well, clearly, Lin does not like pedophiles. Shipping a relationship between these two characters contradicts that altogether. This is, like, the worst possible thing you could do to Mayu as a character. Aside from the fan service scenes that include her, this is a step worse, because you're having her develop an affection for an adult man. And you're basically showing that I mean, it's literally that meme. You remember that fucking meme?
I don't want to remember that meme. No.
Oh God. So then we get this corny ass part afterwards where she's on the beach now, and she keeps cleaning up the beach in memory of Bondo. Like, shut the fuck up. So then we move on to, again, I said that the structure of this manga is repetitive as hell, because it's always them sending someone, the person fails in their endeavors because Lucy's too strong. The next person that they send, there's like this femboy who has a collection of spines, and I guess he's another scientist guy who he has a collection, like he's making homunculi, which are all just Mariko revived, essentially, like a bunch of little Marikos. And this, go ahead.
And they're all stupid. They're all just stupid.
This fucking okay. So Kakuzawa's like, I need results. I need you to get me Lucy. I need something that will give me results. Will these Marikos listen to you? And he's like, yes, they will. And he has one of them stab herself, which was unnecessary. And then Director Kakuzawa's like, well, that's no big deal. And he fucking shoots himself in the hand for no reason. And then he's like, okay, fine. Really? And has one of them. Really? And it's like, I get that he's trying to go for like an actually dark, like unsettling scene. But this entire scene was dumb. Like, aside from how over the top and unnecessary a lot of it was, like, Kakuzawa did not need to shoot himself in the fucking hand for no reason.
What does this prove?
But also, there's like this whole section of this scene where we're supposed to be taking it seriously. It's supposed to be a big thing, but he comes into the chamber and the Marikos tackle him, take his fucking candy, and start eating it. That's another thing. He's got a quirk where he's like obsessed with candy. He eats candy all the time. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but whatever. I hate this manga, dude.
Okay, I gotta explain this. Like, I was worn out reading this volume. I was tired. I almost passed out. Okay, like, I didn't want to be here after a moment, And that usually doesn't happen. That I usually can deal with bad stuff. But this, no. It's so bad.
So yeah, there's that. We go back to Arakawa, who at this point does not know that that Alucard is dead. So she's like naked because she's genuinely worried she's gonna lose. She's naked in her office, looking at her body, and then feeling ashamed. She's like, "I could never be a pleasure slave." And it's like, dude, this happens right after that grim scene where the fucking girl like there's like in order to prove her dedication to the blonde twink character. And then we just move to like a funny moment where Arakawa is feeling insecure about her body. That just came out of fucking nowhere because this.
That's funny. That's funny.
This series loves giving us whiplash. It's insane. And then Coda comes to talk to her about like why do they need Lucy? Like I think he can't find Lucy. Like he hasn't been able to find her since the fight or something. So he comes to ask Arakawa for clues. And this whole conversation is boring as hell. She like sees him. She tries to grab him by sitting on his face, which was unnecessary.
Like what? Like,
and he tells her that the pedo guy, he's dead. And then we see a glimpse of him in heaven, like with a halo, like a little halo.
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, no, that bitch is going to hell.
That man is not in heaven, bro.
That man is going to the deepest layer of hell.
He's going to the 9th layer of hell, bro. He is going to the 11th layer of hell. We're making an 11th just to put him there, bro.
We're not even putting him in the 10th one we made up. He's going to the 11th.
He's going to the 19th, bro. I don't give a fuck. I will invent 200 just to put him at the bottom. That man's going below fucking Blighttown. That man's going to the fucking demon ruins. With the dragon butts
He's going to Lost Izalith.
Yeah. So we introduced Bondo 3.0. This like, we had Bondo, then we had Bondo 2.0, the pedophile guy, and now we have Bondo 3.0, another femboy who wears sunglasses. He looks the exact same as the other one, but with sunglasses. And he's introduced, and basically Kakuzawa's like, hey, kill Lucy, or don't kill Lucy, but grab Lucy, kill everybody else. So he's like, fine, we'll do that. While that's going on, Mayu and Nana find Lucy, or they find New, I guess, and then it becomes this whole thing about how Nana is now New's biggest hater, and she's so ready to kill her, which is so funny because it's like literally 2 volumes ago, she was like, no, don't kill. You shouldn't kill. You mustn't. And now she is like, I don't give a fuck if New is a nice person. Okay, she's gotta die. I'm gonna kill her. And there's like this whole like forced drama where New is standing right there and she hears everything she says and then runs away and cries. I don't know. Like, I want to point out that every single session of us reading this, you have fallen asleep.
Yes, exactly. Like, I don't do that. Like, usually if something's bad, like, I'm like a little interested to see where it goes. I am being actively tortured reading this.
It's just that it's like, it's hitting the point where it's like, he doesn't know what to do with this anymore, or like how to maintain drama conflicts. How many times are we going to get Nana versus Lucy? How many times are we going to get even more boring slice of life where Nana's feeling guilty with terrible dialogue? Like, how many times are we going to run through this shit over and over and over again?
I'm kind of glad that the anime, not even just because this part's terrible, I'm kind of glad that the anime ended where it did. It's just because that felt like an ending.
Yeah, it felt like an abrupt ending, but it felt like an ending. Like, it felt like they were trying to make it feel complete, or as complete as they possibly could.
Yeah, and it's extremely open-ended. Like, and I do believe in this. Like, I feel like there is like a little, like, a story should be kind of open-ended and like, like a lot of room to breathe for like a second season, but it also
leave
feels
you with
like
something to say about it at least.
Yeah.
And then, while we're on the fucking topic of tonal fucking whiplash, this like slice of life segment I was talking about where Nana comes back home and the drama subsides. Nozomi starts yapping about how she's not wearing diapers anymore, and it's like supposed to be meaningful, but it's like you're casually talking about how she used to wear diapers.
Like, I'm not taking this seriously.
I hate this fucking manga, bro.
I think this is the worst volume out. Like, I hated, like, I was worn down reading this.
Oh, you were like groaning in pain. And luckily, though, it ended on a very, very funny note.
They get raided by the Feds.
The femboys find them very, very fast. And the whole house just gets kicked in, and these feds come in with guns, and it is hilarious. It's amazing. When the feds break into the house, I'll say this chapter was great because they beat the shit out of Kota and Yuka, and Nana goes gamer mode and locks the flippin' heck in and fights the feds dudes.
Yeah, and then, dang it, what else happened? Fucking...
I mean, it's literally just like the femboys and their fucking soldiers versus Nana and
Mariko clones.
Oh yeah, they've got Mariko clones with them too, and they're fighting Nana and Lucy.
Yeah, and then freaking
there's like one thing that we wrote down while we were reading this, which is you've repeatedly said this is like so hard to take seriously, like it's not intimidating at all.
Yeah.
Some of the screaming text, like whenever someone starts screaming, it looks like those fucking what are those things called when you're like, it's like prove you're not a robot by typing in the words.
Yeah, it does look like that. Like
that's what this is. We've said it like a trillion different ways. This is the ugliest manga I've ever read. I hate everything about it. So basically, like, yeah, it's Nana and Lucy fighting the fucking soldier dudes. Nana gets her ass beat. She has gotten like the fuck beaten out of her like this entire manga.
Not even physically, just mentally as well.
She's probably the most like suffered the most of this entire story.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny though, because one of the guys holds her head without her limbs like a rag doll, and she's just, like holds her up and she's just a fucking floating rag doll.
It's like playing with the physics gun in Gmod.
Shoutouts to Wanta, Mayu's dog. Best character. He also jumps in and attacks the feds, and then Kota steals a gun. And then he gets shot, and I don't know why he thought they've all got like submachine guns, and he's got just like a stupid ass like. He's also surrounded. I don't know why he thought any of this would work.
Yeah. Freaking like, and then when the dog gets hurt, Mayu just does the Walter shock face.
The fucking Pikachu. Yeah. This is all supposed to be like a tense moment, like you're supposed to be worried that they're all gonna die, but it's like really fucking. I think partly because like this is like how many times has like dog abuse happened in this? It's not really shocking anymore. Like this dog
it's not shocking. Don't get hit bad. Cry now. Where?
It's happened so many times that it's funny now. If I saw that damn thing in my living room, I would stomp on it until it was a small brown
Honestly, I'm gonna be real. If the dog died, I wouldn't care.
Me when a dog dies.
Like, because usually the case is, oh, you don't want the dog, you don't want the dog to die. I kind of want the dog to die.
So this is kind of the point where Kota, like, pretty much after the situation de-escalates and Lucy comes out and starts saving them, which she gets, like, fucking bunny ear horns. Like, there's these ugly-ass, like, giant horns that are, like, a foot long.
She's supposed to look intimidating, but she does not.
I don't know why we're just now going into how the horns and vectors work and how they're correlated. it doesn't make any fucking sense, like, why it had to take this fucking long to get into this, which they don't really talk about. I mean, they barely talk about it after this, so this is kind of the only space we get to explain the actual genetics of how it works and how the hands and the horns and all that shit. Also, this is the point where the twist that Lucy killed Koda's family happens, but by this point, because the manga had you can already put like 2 and 2 together. By this point, it just doesn't work as much as it did in the anime because it's so predictable. It was predictable in the anime, but it's like worse in the manga.
Yeah.
And Koda just figures it out, and then for the rest of the manga, he just hates Lucy. Which that is one thing the manga...
I mean, I would also just hate Lucy as well.
No, yeah, I mean, she sucks, but that is one thing that the manga has over the anime, is that Koda actually hates her because of what she did. Whereas in the anime, he like kisses her and then hugs her and says like, no, it's fine. I mean, I can't forgive you, but it's fine.
Oh my god, killing my family members is so hot.
Can you do it again? Can you give me a new family and then kill them in front of me? Lucy becomes black for a few seconds, and then she starts destroying helicopters.
With her fucking vectors, and it's so stupid.
She fucking grabs one of the helicopters and like slams it into the fucking femboy guy. And then the Mariko experiments try to stop it and save him. Which, by the way, they're wearing jumpsuits, which was something I had actually suggested in a previous video where I was like, why do they have to be naked? They should just be wearing jumpsuits. So that's great.
Yeah, I mean, like, it would also be, like, weird to bring them out in public naked, but...
Well, yeah, true. But still, like, it's anytime he sees an opportunity, it's like he always has to draw them naked. So...
I have no idea why.
Bare minimum, but at least we're doing something else. Anyway, so they're like, so he's about to get crushed by the helicopter, and the 2 Mariko girls, they like hold it up and they're trying to stop it. How'd you feel about this part? It
was okay. It was actually like pretty tense. I will not lie. Lucy's like being just evil as she is, and like these Mariko clones are actually like. They actually try and like save this femboy, even though the femboy just told them to stop and go away.
Yeah, like the thing,
they are dedicated.
They've got this thing in their forehead that like if he barks orders at them, they do it, but it's kind of weird. They don't follow every order, and they really care about him, so they don't want him to die. So they're refusing to listen to him when he's begging them to just let him die and run for their lives. And Lucy feels effectively evil for this whole part, which I thought was pretty good. But then they ruin it by telling you why this is good, actually, because he goes into great detail about, like, I already understood this, but then he starts telling you, like, they love me even though I was cruel to them. It's like Lin cannot, like, he thinks that you won't get it, so he has to explain it to you every single
What is
scene.
visual storytelling?
Like, what is subtlety? I don't know the definition of that word.
The Mariko clones, like, she sacrifices herself to be with the femboy, whatever.
I don't give a fuck about his name. It's okay.
And like because they really care about her, so she just jumps into the helicopter just so that she can die with the femboy or whatever.
And then Lucy's like, "That was lame."
She actually does say that. She actually just says that is lame.
Great dialogue. And then like a homeless man who turns out to be Kurama appears out of fucking nowhere, like, hello chat. And
then he also says, "Are you tourist? Are you a tourist?
Are you a tourist? But
are you a tourist? You look like a tourist.
Do you have cash?" No, he starts crying over the fucking Mariko clothes. And then
even though it's just a dead body.
And then she says, "Fuck it," she calls him daddy.
Do I look like...
Once this happens, basically the femboy, he gets away, but he's like severely injured. They carry him out of there. They captured Lucy. And then Lucy, while she's being captured, she remembers another person she met after she killed Koda's family. This other girl that we saw in the anime, but we didn't see much of it. We only saw the conclusion of the backstory. We did not see all of the build-up leading to it. Either way, she meets this girl, and I liked this whole part, honestly.
Yeah.
To a point. It like started really good, and we were both like, "Hey, this is nice, actually. Like, it's not fucking dark and edgy for once." Where it's like her spending time with the girl and going to the park with her every day, and then learning about how she wants to be an artist like her mom. And then she invites her to her house, and
it's got to go back to edgy shit where like, oh, she actually has an abusive father.
It was
oh,
the
no.
second he fucking showed up, I was like, no, come on, man. Like, come on. Just let us have like one good thing for once.
Okay, this is what I noticed. I think it was later when I noticed it, but like Len, like he doesn't let the story breathe. It's always just constant like awful crap that it's just numbing. It's numbing.
I'm saying this as a Berserk fan. This series overdoes it with the torture porn. Like, fucking, and I'm literally like, that seems like a hypocritical statement to say as a Berserk fan, but it's like, where's my bonfire of dreams? Where's like, you know, the fucking, that part where they're on a ship and Guts is like chilling in the fucking window and it's like beautiful outside. Like, even a story as like aggressively dark as Berserk knows that like you need to take a break from it sometimes. Even Made in Abyss gets this right. How does Made in Abyss get this right?
I think like a very good example of like in Berserk, like I think it was like they took a castle, they sieged a castle, it was like really bloody, but then you just see them afterwards just kind of like hanging out and saying, "Oh, Guts, you're actually pretty cool, man."
And it's
you're
not
actually
like
pretty great.
It's not like Elfen Lied doesn't have like slower moments. The problem a lot of the time though is that he, you know, I mean, he interjects his fetishes into the dark shit, whatever, and then he interjects it into the wholesome shit, so that gets ruined too. So it's like we never really get a moment where we're not just completely disturbed or grossed out by this manga. And you kind of like the fact that even like in Made in Abyss where there's like good moments in that's insane to me. Because Made in Abyss is actually more vile than this. Besides,
like, one scene in the first episodes, the first, like, 3 episodes of Made in Abyss are pretty chill. They're pretty chill.
So I just don't understand, like, the appeal of this manga. I think this is, like, so obnoxiously edgy all the time, and it's just exhausting to read. Like, when we were reading this, we felt like we were dying.
No. I like actually fell asleep like 2 times during this.
Either way, Lucy throws the abusive dad into the ceiling while the mom makes like the funniest fucking face ever. And then they run away. Or well, no, she runs away because like, you know, you invited your friend over, and then suddenly the dad gets launched up into the fucking air through some mysterious means. And then it turns out, as Lucy goes away and then meets with the girl again, turns out the girl killed her dad.
By accident. By complete accident.
And it happened off camera. Like, she made him cut himself, I guess? I don't know. But, like, he didn't convey it. What happened? I don't even remember.
Oh my god. I think it was like nowhere near the neck. I think it was like nowhere near the neck. But like it still cut him somehow. I don't know.
It happens off screen. So like we don't really see it. I guess points for some kind of subtlety. I just don't really get the point. I feel like the dad, not only does it feel forced and just kind of shoehorned in, it also just kind of ruins this backstory dynamic, because I already knew it was going to conclude with the girl dying.
Like,
That's
it was
dark
very obvious.
That's dark enough as is. You could have just had her finally have like a good time with someone without fucking abuse being shoehorned into the narrative yet again. And then it could have just ended with her dying, and that would have been a million times more effective than just more of this.
Yeah, like, why not just like, oh, Lucy found somebody that thinks she's cool and they get along, but then the feds come in and then just kill her.
And it sucks.
Why not
like,
that?
There's like this really good part where like Lucy pretends to be a witch only for her to die, but it's like ruined because, like, again, the dark tone of her fucking abusive father just completely, like, I've already lost interest. And the dialogue is fucking horrible. Like, she just starts, like, complaining, like, I'm never gonna be happy. Because Lin is a repetitive-ass writer. He just keeps defaulting onto the same tricks again and again.
Like, freaking, like faking out a death or something.
Oh my god, we got some complaints about that, like, later on. I'll say, by this point of the manga, it still looks horrendous, but it looks better than, like, the earlier chapters. And the manga panels are, at least, in terms of structure, they're a lot less lazy. He's actually doing something with the pages now, and it's not just box, 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 box. So that's a plus. He's getting better at drawing. You can kind of see it already.
Oh my god. Well, what else happens?
Well, so basically they hide out in a museum, and Lucy starts showing off her vector ability, and the girl is like, wow, it's like magic. This is really cool, which, you know, since she's been, like, chastised for it her whole life, I actually thought that was a good scene too. I thought it was cute. That, you know, she's like, it's like showing off magic to your friend. And then Kurama finally hunts down Lucy, and they shoot the girl. And then they take Lucy in and then lock her up, which leads to the events of the very beginning when she broke out of prison. And basically Kurama breaks the news to her that, hey, we tried to save the girl, but she's dead. And so that's...
Your friend is dead.
That's why Lucy, for the rest of the series, her goal becomes to kill everyone close to Kurama.
And she gets to do it over and over again, actually.
It's just a little too word salad in the manga. I liked this part a lot better in the anime, even though... I really think this whole thing was better in the anime, because they cut right to the chase of just the moment with her and the girl, showing her abilities, and then the girl dying, and then Kurama breaking the news to her. It's so much better in the anime just because of how much less bullshit there is. Like, it cuts out the abusive father and all of that. So, you know, you can make the contention that, like, because when we watched the anime, we said that, who is this girl? Like, we don't even have much context beyond just she knew Lucy and was nice to her. That's really all we needed, apparently, because when we find out more context in the manga, we regret it immediately.
Yeah.
In my notes, I wrote, Koda's mother meets the Grahams, which is the name of the Kendrick Drake diss. So I don't know what I was talking about here. But there is... Basically, Nana starts getting discriminated against because of her horns, and it's just really fucking exhausting.
It's stupid. It's like Nana is like the little scrunkly character, and then it's freaking revealed that somehow the femboy twink character in the Kurama clone survived getting crushed by a helicopter.
Yeah, like, oh my god, he's in one of the other rooms. While we're having this Nana drama where, like, people are like, oh, you got horns, you're a freak. And then she starts crying and says, this time I'm really gonna do it.
I gotta mention this as well. The femboy character just has, like, a cast on his leg. That's it.
Yeah.
Are you sure that's the only thing injured? Are you sure?
He ain't get no sloppy. So, yeah, he, like, somehow lived through all of this shit. The only character that's died has been the best character. So I that's like one issue that comes up a lot is that fucking, and it's gonna keep happening where like, oh, this guy's dead. No, he's not. Back to Nana though, because like it cuts back and forth between the blonde twink and Nana. Because like the blonde twink, he's like talking to the Mariko girls and trying to see how they like. He's basically like, okay, you guys saved my life even though it was cruel to you. And he's wondering if that really was their free will or if it was just the thing put in their head. And while that's happening, Nana
tries and goes and finds Karama, and it turns out that he's on the beach that like Bondo left him there.
Yeah, that part was so bad.
That part was
God.
so it was like a kid just in his room, he wanted nobody else in his room. It was so fucking funny.
He's like, he's lost his mind. He's like, Nana's like, Papa, and he's like, you're not my daughter. This is my daughter, and it's one of the Mariko clones, but I think it's one of the dead ones. I think he like collected one of the corpses and took it to his tent to fucking cry over.
I know it smells awful in there.
Or no, I think it was alive. But either way, like, it's so fucking funny. And it's like, I just wish by now that Kurama had just died, because in the anime he did. And it was one of the most fantastic parts of the anime. It was actually like really good in the anime. And I'm not even saying that as like, oh, well, this is just mediocre and everything else is bad in comparison. No, it was actually like really good in the anime. I wish it was in a better anime.
Yeah, and I also got to mention this. He kind of looks like Seto Kaiba.
So Nana, she begins to go gamer mode, sexual style.
Just kidding. Actually, she just kidnaps Kurama because she can't. Because Len just can't like go with an idea for some reason.
So fucking funny. Like Nana is like the funniest character. Honestly, probably best girl.
I think manga. She's the best character.
She got done
dirty.
Bondo. She got done so dirty, but she's such a funny.
Like
character.
I was so mad. Like, are you really gonna turn the Scrunkly character evil now? Are you serious?
So to reiterate my complaint about the fucking text font, that I said looked like shit when they were like laughing or screaming. Sometimes it'll just cut to this weird cursive font that made it hard as hell to read what it was saying because the text was so small. Like my PP, my pecker, my tic tac,
a little woodpecker,
and that's just that continues to happen. And it's also he's really bad at like he'll put like text that is the same color as the background, so it just blends right in with the background. You can barely read it. It's bad. Either way, we learn that the director, the old man, the creepy guy, he's got horns. This time it's revealed much better because like in the anime, it's at the very, very end, and he just pulls it off and shows Arakawa, and then she faints, and we never address it for the rest of the fucking anime. But in the manga, it's revealed it's much more subtle, surprisingly, because that's one of the fucking things this manga does. It's never subtle. But you don't even really get to see it. He reveals it to Lucy, because he's captured Lucy, and he gets this vague monologue, and then you kind of just see the back of his head, but you don't really get to see them per se, which this part is like the most angry this manga's made me, because this guy is such a good villain. He's like such a cool villain, and then they completely crap all over his fucking character.
Yeah, so basically what he is that he's a descendant of, like, basically Japanese mythological creatures that have just been shunned for a long while. And, like, that's interesting.
That was a good-ass idea. It's not true. They say it's not true later on, but that was a good-ass idea. And so his goal is he wants to be the leader of the Diclonius, lead them into as like the dominant race, and he wants to be on top of it all. And Like, I don't even care that he's like talking a lot and monologuing, because oh my god, this guy is so fucking funny to watch. Like, he's unhinged.
It's great. It's great. It's actually like, this is the one time where I think Mucho Texto actually benefits it, because he's great to listen to.
Oh, I was like reading every word, just ecstatic. Like, this is what I mean when I say we need more villains that are just comically evil. Like, that are just evil, because too many villains they're trying to be like Lucy, where it's like they're evil but they've got good reasons and there's good in them. It's like, no, this guy's just fucking evil. He wants to destroy all of humanity and create a race of his own. we also have a note here that says Diclonius are demons made by radiation. And I mentally read that in the Alex Jones voice. He's like, they're demons!
Diclonius are demons made by radiation!
They're demons, I tell you! Either way, back to the twink guy that has the cast on his leg.
So basically, like,
he pulls out like a blade out of this thing, and my brain, because I'm fucking internet poisoned, I just immediately was just like, well, you went to prom, I studied the blade.
Fuck you, Catherine. Prom probably sucked anyway. I was too busy grinding the blade.
But anyway, he makes a self-sacrifice by testing out what would happen if he gave his experiments free will. I think he uses the blade to pop the little thing out of her head to see if
wasn't that section also like really mucho texto?
It was, but like I think there is kind of an interesting dynamic here, because it's like a question of free will. Like, is the empathy that I gave them, is it really free will, or is it just something I'm imposing onto them, and how it kind of studies the ethics of that? I don't know. Have you seen Clockwork Orange?
No.
Well, it does that a lot better, because it's about a psychopath that becomes basically a victim. And I'm going to show you that movie at some point, but it's kind of that idea of like, is it ethical to force empathy onto something that cannot express it?
Yeah.
And it turns out we get an overt answer, which I sort of take issue with. I kind of wish that it had stayed open-ended, but like, honestly, I would not, honestly, like, if this were me writing, and this is just me saying, I would have him take it off, and then I would never show him or the Diclonius again for the rest of the manga. They would, like, I would leave people questioning, like, what happened, but Lin Okamoto didn't do that.
Yeah.
It turns out that
I would also kind of give, like, hints of what happened, kind of make it, like, obvious. Well, not obvious, but kind of like
subtle, like leave clues to leave people speculating.
Yeah.
And that would be the end of his character arc. Just that like open-ended question. I think that would be a lot more interesting. But no, it turns out that his decision to take the thing out of her head was bad, and she kills him. But we get this super unsubtle buildup where he questions if he should take her to a theme park or something just to make you feel bad, when it inevitably crashes and burns. And she kills him. Because why the fuck not?
And great. I just remembered this part. Yuka kisses Koda again, the worst character ever, and
because why the fuck not?
Kill myself. I hate her. I hate her. I actually no. I say this. Mew is beyond annoying, but I would rather listen to Mew for like on a YouTube compilation that's 10 hours more than ever watch a single second of Yuka again.
I don't even get why Yuka's here, other than to be annoying.
Incest.
So it's cutting back and forth between like the fucking drama dynamic of Yuka and Koda and the Diclonius woman, because now the Diclonius girl, she's like about to jump off the building. She's about to, I guess, kill herself or something.
I'm not suggesting anymore.
I think, okay, we're kind of all over the place with topics, but I think one thing that really bothers me with the way this story implements these ideas, which I admit some of them are pretty good ideas. Actually, I don't really think there is in fiction. I don't think, unless you're just straight up making it for like a bigoted purpose, I don't think there is such a thing as a bad idea in fiction. It's all about execution. That's really my issue with this, is that good ideas but terrible execution. Because there's like a guy, like we've already kind of put 2 and 2 together that discrimination against Diclonius sort of correlates somewhat with racism, but I think using the race metaphor itself is kind of an issue because Diclonius are a murderous race. And
like you're not really gonna get sent, because the problem is with like real world racism is like these people don't deserve it. They haven't done anything. They just have oppressors. But like the Diclonius, no, they're murderous. They're just
like
murderous.
And it's like difficult to say, oh, do they deserve it? Because like, should we kill all animals that are like, that kill because it's natural to kill? I think it's too messy of a metaphor to work to directly compare it to racism. But this fucking guy basically just compares it to racism, just overtly in the dialogue. So that is clearly what he's trying to go for. And I think there's some issues with that. I greatly take issue with that.
Doesn't like Barbara, like once she just jumps off the cliff, just like she just flies? Doesn't she just do that?
Right, I forgot about that. We just read it and I forgot about that. That was the funniest fucking visual. Lynn's not racist, by the way. He's definitely not racist. I just wanted to let you know that. So Neo has these like brief memories. Like it tries to slow things down back to slice of life, and this is exactly what I was talking about. Where we go back to, we finally slow things down. It stops being edgy for a little bit, but it's just Neo having these brief memories of the people that she cares about and how she wishes she could go back home and see them again. And those memories are her groping them and doing lewd stuff and like out of pocket shit. I hate this fucking manga, dude.
Do you think he wrote this manga with like one hand?
Yeah, I do. And then, fucking the Diclonius guy, I can't believe, Kakuzawa, I think is his name. He like tells her the truth of like, basically after this whole monologue of him talking about the Diclonius and racism, how they're racist against us and whatever the fuck else, she basically calls him a liar. So everything you told me was a lie. Even racism.
Even the racism.
That doesn't exist. I don't know what that is.
Wait a minute.
In other news, Arakawa finally took a bath. Best manga.
Yeah.
So, as we said, Mariko flew, and she, like, T-poses and says, the voices are telling me to kill them all. And then Nana fights clone Mariko, and it's funny as fuck. Everybody looks weird as shit. The faces are weird. The anatomy's weird. This manga's weird. We feel weird for reading this manga.
And also, Kurama is just no longer...
Just loses his fucking, like, mental problems in 2 seconds. And
Didn't he, like, get shot in the brain by himself?
Yeah, he shot himself in the head, and then he's been, like, mentally insane until 2 seconds ago when he shot Mariko.
Like, that's not... Okay, no, he's missing pieces of his brain.
Arakawa, basically a fucking explosion happens from like, vectors from underground, because as we said, that, Kakuzawa's got his goddaughter and he's got Lucy. And so vectors just fucking blow up out of the ground, and Arakawa somehow survives, but the facility is falling apart now. And then there's a panel in which a bunch of Diclonius girls march with helmets on. So-called free thinkers when the ice cream truck is nearby. And they're basically it's like a zombie apocalypse, essentially. Like they're all over the fucking facility. And this is getting out of hand. One of the fucking Marikos that was with the femboy, I guess one of the good ones, TM, that's got a thing in her head, steps in to save Arakawa from these evil Marikos that came out of nowhere and are now breaching the entire facility. And I'm gonna be honest, I got lost for like most of this. I can't keep up with which Marikos are good, which ones are bad, which ones are Marikos, and which ones are just regular Diclonius, and what the fuck is going on? I'm
like
so
what
lost.
is going on now? It's just
he's like introducing way too much shit at the same time. Like there's so much going on at the same time. It's like hard to keep up with all of this. I will say I did like that after the Mariko clone saves her, she then is like, "What's this in your head?" and she's about to take it out. And I thought that was like an interesting idea of like, "Oh, is she going to die? Is she going to die?" And then she does take it out. And then the thing's about to kill her, but then the guy comes in and
just pops it back in. Just
switches her back to silly mode. By the way, the bounty hunter guy, he's still alive in all this chaos, but he won't be for long. Maybe, possibly, he might live. Who knows? But
I don't know. Oh wait, I actually gotta explain this. Okay, so like, I don't think Len Okamoto understands how tone works, because like
no,
usually
it's
in
complete
this
tonal fucking whiplash.
Yeah, because in this entire manga, like, he'll go from, like, tense and serious to, like, oh, ha, 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 funny, funny, ha, ha, funny. Like, you can't do that.
It's, I mean, I think, and I mean, we've been ragging on season 4, but I think The Boys did that really well, where it was able to kind of balance comedy and, like, actual, like, scary shit. Mainly because it plays into like the nervous laughter aspect of it, so sometimes the scary shit is the part that's supposed to be funny. But that's different from Lin Okamoto, because I think the issue is just that Lin Okamoto's humor is lazy. Like it's literally just girl is dumb.
But it's like
girl does dumb thing and is cute.
Menacing girl do dumb thing. Do.
And autism. So Lucy meets the director Kakuzawa's daughter, and she breaks free from her confinement and fights the fucking daughter goddess thing and kills it
somehow.
Which like we were both so angry because it's like that was like the coolest thing this thing had ever introduced, and then it just gets killed by Lucy.
Yeah, and I gave Lucy the nickname of the good writing killer because, like, she is either
solely responsible
damaged,
for killing like most of the good parts of this manga.
Yeah, like she is either damaged or killed the good parts. Okay, like she's mostly damaged, like Bondo. She mostly damaged. Oh wait, no, she actually killed Bondo, didn't she?
Yeah, she ripped him in half.
Yeah.
We're led to believe that she killed him, but I'm very good at foreshadowing. But she this thing is a god. It's like the most powerful entity in the entire manga, and she fucking kills it. I thought it would have been like a great idea because, like, obviously for the ending of the story to happen, we need Lucy to be so broken beyond belief that she's like an entity herself. I thought it would have been a great idea to have like the god like absorb her into herself, and then it becomes like they merge into this entity. And I thought that was going to happen, but no, she just killed the god character. So now I'm just like, why is this god character even in the story?
Yeah, no. And actually, this is a good thing. Why does Len always kill off his good ideas?
Yeah, like anytime it's close to being like, okay, this is decent, it then just undoes it, and then we go on with something even worse. Like,
it's like, why am I watching this? There's no point.
And then furthermore, we like change. He establishes like this thing can tell the future, but then last minute before it dies, we have to change the fucking the way it works. Change the way it works, like the mechanics of her future vision. Where it's like, well, no, I can't actually tell the entire future. I can only tell specific futures. And it's like, you waited until now to change it to that? Like, you should have established that from the get-go.
Yeah, he basically put himself in a writing block.
Kakuzawa then goes on another monologue, and unlike the last one, unlike the last one, this one is terrible because he basically tells Lucy in depth, I raped your mom. He says it very proudly too. Like
Your mother showed me her broadside.
And then he brings out Lucy's younger half brother.
It's just like, why?
This came out of nowhere. And
he's like the only male Diclonius with like both horns and hair.
That's why your mama dead. Dead as hell.
And he goes into great detail about how Lucy's mom he raped her. He tells you, yes, I did indeed. I got all up in that. And then we see, like, we talk about her being cut open and vivisected, and it's like, ow, the edge. Like, Jesus Christ.
Yes, and you also see the freaking little goofy kid's face, and it's just like also tonal whiplash.
He calls himself the Homo Diclonius.
When I read that, I lost my mind. That is the dumbest name I've ever heard.
And then after all that bullshit, Lucy's like, well, guess what? You didn't actually come from mythology, bitch. And then she kills him, and the fucking little sun guy thing that was just introduced also dies. Further adding to the fact that Lin will do nothing with his ideas. He then proceeds to call this entire stretch pretentious and undermines the folklore that we just learned. It's like he hates good writing. Dude. He hates good writing, I swear to God.
Like, you're pretentious. Like, fuck you, dude.
Then why'd you put it in the story? Lit. If it's pretentious, why did you put it in the story? Kakuzawa is revealed to be Uncle Ruckus, but a human. Which greatly ruins his character. It's like, he basically makes the point that, he's not actually Diclonius, which is dumb. Like, this male, keep in mind, part of the problem has been that these Diclonius have mostly been female, and they've been trying to procreate, but they want to kill human beings, but they also need human beings to procreate. And so, introducing male Diclonius solved this problem. Right?
Then you just kill him.
No, they just don't exist. He wasn't actually a male Diclonius. He was just a dude with horns for whatever fucking reason.
Yeah, he was just this Japanese mythology guy. Oh, dead now.
It's not even that they killed him, because I can get why Lucy doesn't support his ideals. It's the fact that we then say, he wasn't even Diclonius in the first place. That's what, bothers me, is like, well, then what was even the point of all this shit?
Yeah, it kind of makes the whole manga pointless.
So then we get this boring ass scene where these scientists are carrying some kind of weapon. And
it's like it's like you can honestly skip this chapter. I think
it's like this weapon's at risk of blowing up should it rock too much, which makes me wonder why they're even carrying it on a boat in the fucking first place. And they address this. They literally ask this, and then just straight up dodge the question.
Yeah, and then later on in the chapter, a freaking tidal wave comes in.
New characters are getting introduced left and right, and they're just becoming less and less memorable, and it's just hard to keep up with it. Either way, the fucking Bondo 3.0 bounty hunter guy, he finds Arakawa. There's this running gag where everybody just, because she's wearing panties and she's not wearing any pants. And so everybody that meets her is just staring at her crotch, and they start calling her Panty Woman, which is fucking impeccable dialogue. Thank you, Lin Okamoto. Either way, Bondo 3.0, he has inherited the spike balls that the psychotic guy, the Alucard, had.
Yeah.
He starts using them. And you know what? I fuck with the idea of just a Diclonius infection, a outbreak or a breach. And because it's just him killing several Diclonius with these fucking spike balls.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I said, it felt like a zombie apocalypse. So we get a small segment in which Arakawa is like asking him basically why are you doing this? And then asks him is your mission more important than your life? Which is dumb because it's
it's the vaccine.
She's carrying a vaccine for the Diclonius virus, and she literally minutes after asking this, she's about to fall, and then he the ground breaks, she's about to fall, he grabs her arm, and she's holding the vaccine, and it's weighing them down, and so he's telling her to drop it, and she doesn't want to, and so he kind of hits her with that same question of Is it really more important than your life? I think that's fine. I thought that part was good. I thought that was like an interesting idea to implement.
You want to know what I think? I think that this story should have ended with Earth just being populated by Diclonius.
The amount of times in which spontaneous deaths just fucking come out of nowhere is insane. Like, Diana saved them and then gets killed. I think Diana's like one of the fucking Diclonius thing. I don't know. There's so many fucking characters in this goddamn manga.
Yeah, one of the Mariko clones.
And, like, then we get this self-sacrifice part where the bounty hunter guy is, like, repeatedly saying, there's no time, get out of here, and yet will not shut the fuck up. Like, he just keeps like talking, telling her how important...
Texto, just get out.
And I don't know anything about this dude, not even his name. Like, I can't even remember what his fucking name is. But we're supposed to care that he's like sending her on this fucking... It was actually really fucking funny. He puts her on a gondola and sends the gondola down to get her out of here while he sacrifices himself to the Diclonius so that she can go see a chopper. And then she goes down the gondola.
And then there's just a bunch of Diclonius over there.
The chopper's destroyed and it's on fire. And then Arakawa just goes on this spiel where she basically gives you a full summary and analysis of her character because, again, this series, like, doesn't want you to write video essays. It wants to write them itself.
That's actually a good point. This video is just a video essay in manga form.
I like it, Kaji.
So, there's, like, this really... She even though the helicopter was a total bust, she gets saved by this ship that I think appeared in that other chapter.
Yeah.
As soon as she gets on, this guy asks her if she was raped, and then she gets like really mad, and it's like that was like that. What was the point of that? Like, anyway, this ship is like a giant. It's like a giant vector ship. It's like a ship that has vectors.
Yeah, and it's like, it has like the bodies of Diclonius in it, which is why it has vectors.
This is a nifty idea, I'm not gonna lie, but it's like insanely OP, and it also, like, it just came out of nowhere. Like,
and I asked when watching this, no, Lucy's gonna be able to kill this. She's gonna...
Yeah, she's too overpowered. Basically, it's like a manufactured Diclonius, and they think they can find the vaccine using it, and then we happen to run right into it without any struggle, just like that, because we just want to breeze through this plot point. So that kind of makes a lot of this conflict that just happened kind of fucking useless. And right when they get the vaccine, he says, hopefully nothing bad happens. And we both immediately knew, like, something bad is about to happen.
Yeah.
And guess what? Lucy shows up with a face that looks like that fucking Captain America meme. Where... And then... Somehow Lucy survived the island being submerged like a fucking toilet bowl, and then the vector ship gets destroyed within a few chapters of being introduced, and everything, again, feels fucking pointless. So yeah, that leads to the last volume, the end.
We're almost there.
Oh my god, this ending, this fucking ending. This is the most notes we've written for this. There's this scene, okay, Lucy somehow makes it back to the beach at the beginning that she washed up on, where she finds Coda. And then she sees that Coda is injured from the
incident.
So she carries him to a fucking lighthouse, and we're like supposed to care that she feels guilty, and then she gives this edgy speech where, like, she literally says inside of her there are two wolves, basically.
She literally says, I have two sides, cute woo girl, racist.
I have two. It's her personal Eminem and Slim Shady. Hardly any of the tensions between the characters have been resolved. Like, Yuka has not overcome her fucking obsession with Coda. Nana has not really overcome the baggage with Kurama all that well. It doesn't feel like any of these characters have particularly changed. It just feels like a string of bad things has happened to them, and that's it. Nobody's, like, learned from the experience or changed. And then Lucy then goes on a tangent about how I killed because I don't want to be bullied anymore.
I think you deserve to be bullied more for saying that.
Now, in the manga, at least Koda hates her, but I have to rescind that little compliment there because he still tries to forgive her. Mainly because of Neil, which, I mean, personally, I just think both of them should fucking die, but that's
yeah.
over there. And it's like, why did he happen to be on the beach the minute she showed up? How did he know she was gonna be here? Why?
Like, how? Just,
Anyway, Kurama shoots Lucy.
Yeah. It's like, and we both clapped. We were like, yes, she's finally dead. And then later
Psych!
on, never freaking mind.
She fucking cut off his arm, even though it's like the fucking panel was her brains being blown out, and everyone stopped sensing her presence. But no, we were duped again because Lin Okamoto is such a genius.
Even like with the other fake out deaths, you can kind of tell like, oh, which character's gonna die. This was so like this was drawn directly to be like, yes, Lucy is dead. Not really.
And apparently this was all so we could have a contrived drama where she breaks her promise to Koda within minutes of making it. But Kurama doesn't even die from this because he like as soon as Koda sees that she injured someone, he gets all mad and he's like, nah, why would you just promised me you wouldn't hurt anybody anymore. And she's like, no, I'm sorry, I was trying to defend myself. And then Kurama shoots him in the back by mistake. And then we get like a flashback to the girl with a fucking unnecessary panty shot number like 4032.
Yeah.
I just want to point out, while we were reading this, we were listening to Linkin Park for the entire final stretch.
So funny.
There were a few cool spreads. There's like a part where Lucy's arms like stretch out of the atmosphere into space, which I thought was pretty cool. I remembered liking that when I first read this manga. And then as we transition between chapters, there's a picture of Mayu's dog hailing Hitler. So yeah. Nana manages, like, basically an explosion happens and Nana saves Kurama from it somehow. And then Lucy's like transformed, but she's overdoing it with her powers and now she's started melting. I don't know why. Don't fucking ask me.
I don't understand how that works.
But apparently she can heal people with her vectors, so she starts healing Koda's wounds. That and also like Lucy's fucking vectors spreading out into space. Neither of those things have been explained. We don't get why it happened. They just happened.
Yeah. And then Lucy starts finally dying, and then what? And like the Linkin Park song "What I've Done" just started playing like the exact moment. It was so funny. But then the moment was ruined for me.
It was ruined because Lucy starts singing, and then Salt's brain like immediately knew that was supposed to be Lilium. So even though we was reading the manga, it was still like playing in his head.
I wanted to, like, I was in physical pain.
It's a good song. It's just that the anime plays it like way too much. Like,
I can't listen to it. I'll admit it's a good song, but I hate listening to it.
Anyway, Lucy dies by melting, or well, Lucy melts into a splotch in the ground. She literally becomes a small brown paste. And then there's like natural disasters being caused by her vectors. And then Koda chooses to forgive her because she melted herself and now defends her from the military because like they come up and then they're like, we need to kill her, and he's like, no, even though like just a few minutes ago he was like, I hate you for killing my family.
Oh my god. Like I like Koda just like goes from like he just like switches like, oh, do I want to forgive her? No, I can't forgive her, like 5 times.
And then
like 5 times.
like she's dying, and like the manga tells you in great detail how sad this is, and I don't care. I don't fucking care.
I want it to be over.
She starts floating as like a melted husk, and we get to see her body. I thought it was great that we were like she's melted, but we don't get to see what she looks like. But no, we do. We do get to see what she looks like, because again, fuck subtlety. And then she says this is all Koda's fault. You know, stop having a killable family. Jeez.
Okay, like, I think when like Lucy turned into a sludge, I thought that was like her evil side that tried convincing her to kill people. I thought that was her, right? Was it?
I don't know, dog.
Let's be real. Len's not that deep. He's not capable of that good of writing.
You're not that guy. You're not that guy, buddy. You're not that guy. So yeah, then we end it with her basically handing Koda the gun, and he has to shoot her. And then she's like, I wanted to live with you. But then like he can't kill her because he just can't. He loves her so much. And then he does the fucking chopper face.
It's literally the chopper face, and I lost it.
We don't even get to see him shoot her. We just cut to like him and the others like living normal lives. By the way, he ended up with Yuka.
Gabe said like, oh, there are 2 parts that are gonna piss you off. There were 4.
There were more than 4, buddy. There were a lot. Basically what happens is for the rest of the chapter, we cut to like everything else. All the resolution's been tied up. Arakawa actually, fuck it. I said Nana was best girl. Arakawa best girl. You know, she had like the best arc. She got her dub in the end. She used she distributed
she finally took a bath.
Vaccine across the world and stopped the Diclonius virus. Fucking but this whole part sucks. Fucking okay. God, the god girl or whatever turned back into a human, so she didn't actually die.
Yeah, and
she's
then
not actually dead.
She like asked the bounty hunter like, "Oh, what's this plus this? What's this?" And like
the bounty hunter also is not dead. Like he comes down there where she was, finds her. He didn't die apparently. I thought he was dead from when he sacrificed himself to all those Diclonius, but no, he's not dead. The girl's not dead. And then we get this whole bit about her talking about multiplication tables.
And it's just like, what the fuck?
To show you,
she's just stupid.
That she's dumb now because Lin hates being serious he's just a silly, whimsical little guy. Then we cut to like Nana crying over a grave. And then we're like, oh, did Kurama die? Because I didn't see him die, except he's not. That was another fake out.
And Nana's just being over dramatic.
I don't even know whose grave that fucking was. I'm gonna be honest with you. Yeah, so Kurama, like, we were led to believe Kurama died, but no, he's alive. And then now Nana wants to be Kurama's wife, which I think is disgusting because that's basically her dad figure.
Yeah.
By the way, Bondo's not dead.
Yeah, somehow,
like in this chapter,
I was so freaking mad. Like, we saw his waist get torn in half. We saw his organs.
This chapter,
how is he alive?
In this single chapter, all of the characters we thought were dead came back out of nowhere.
Except like the freaking
Except for like the really bad ones like Kakuzawa or like Alucard. Those guys are dead because they're bad guys. And also Kakuzawa's son. But like everyone else is still alive. For a series that is this gory, it really did just undo all of the like tension. And as if things could not get bad enough with all of this, because we just kept getting more and more mad with every character coming back.
I lost it when Bondo showed up because, like, how do you survive your waist getting torn in half?
And then I just kept trying to wrangle and be like, but it gets worse. It gets worse. Because then we cut to Koda. I guess was left with some sort of letter or something that said
under Lucy's grave, and it's like, oh, we get to meet again, and then guess what happens?
So it cuts to this segment where
sorry.
every single day he's going to the same spot in the woods every single day. Apparently he had kids with Yuka, and he takes his daughter with him every single fucking day. And then eventually he finds these two little girls insinuating that Lucy and New got reincarnated. So they're not dead either.
So Lucy and New didn't die. They did not die. They didn't die.
The diclonius disease also, like, I think it's great that they wrapped up the plot point, whatever, but the diclonius disease also feels pointless because it just essentially just gets undone by the vaccine.
I think that this manga should have ended with the Diclonius taking over the world, and then they would have like captured Yuka, and then she would have been the last human to be like a game ended or something. And
it completely destroys all the tension regarding the oppression against Dicloni, because the answer is basically like, yeah, just let them all die. They shouldn't exist. They really shouldn't exist in the first place.
Just cure them. Just cure them out. Just cure them out.
Just they shouldn't even exist in the first place. It's okay. It's fine. Yeah. This was awful.
I was like, oh, I'm gonna be able to handle the manga when like we watch the anime again. I wasn't strong enough.
You see what I mean, though, when I say that, like, as much as I hate the anime, it's better. It's so much better. Like, if only you knew how bad things really were. All of this shit, I'm glad did not make it into the anime. Because, like,
and yeah, somehow people think this is better because more content, like, look, actually worse.
If you like Elfen Lied manga more than the anime, you are entitled to your opinion. But I certainly did not, and I hope you can at least understand where I'm coming from here. This was fucking atrocious. This was completely painful. I hope I never have to suffer through anything this bad again.
Oh my god.
Well, thank you for joining me on this adventure, Salt.
I want to fucking kill you.
This was quite fun. Shoutouts to Themabizo. His channel will be linked in the description.
Look at my manual video.
Yeah. Manuals are better than Elfen Lied, I think.
I would rather have a manual scratch my face off than ever watch Elfen Lied again.
As I've been working on this video every day, I kept wondering if maybe this topic was just me beating a dead horse. I often felt like nobody would care about what I have to say, given I built some of my relevance on fucking hating the series. So I spent a lot of time just procrastinating. Plus, if I ever try to go to college and get an actual professional job, I pray to God they don't find these videos because I'm embarrassed to even admit that I bothered reading it. Back when I first read the manga, I didn't even reread the parts that I already knew about, instead opting to just skip to where the manga keeps going since I already watched the fucking anime. So this is the first time I've ever read this thing from start to finish. Back when I had initially talked about the series, I half-assed my review and spent a ton of time feeling bitter and hateful towards this anime because of how shitty and pretentious I was. It was my crutch to show you that I had such enlightened taste. And I regret this mindset because I was immature and arrogant due to my personal insecurities. But even as my taste and my personality have evolved and grown, I need to just outright say, Elfen Lied is terrible. Like, indefensibly so. It's not even really the writing that offends me. A lot of the time it's just the creepy sexualization of really young children or a girl who acts like one. Much of the content in this series is pretty depraved and disgusting, and not to mention really hard to ignore when you comb back through it. But even then, I can ignore these things when a story has more to bring to the table than just that. Like, I always bring up the stuff in Berserk as an example, and that does get pretty bad, especially around the Lost Children arc, but another Really good one is Made in Abyss. I won't go into detail, but both of these stories are pretty fucking disturbing and often gross, but despite the deviance, I'm still able to appreciate them both because they do have good stories. And that's kind of the main difference. It's all about execution and giving the viewer a reason to care. Elfen Lied's approach to this is severely lacking, with more emphasis put on the brutal violence and weird fetish stuff than on any sort of depth. But that's the thing, it could have been a great story, because there are times where there is serious potential. I can't deny the impact that it's had with its unique concept and just off-the-wall violence. This is one of the goriest stories I've ever seen, with only Berserk reaching the same level of pure angst and brutality, but it also inspired other stories like Stranger Things, which is a genuinely decent show. The appeal of Elfen Lied, at least for me, is the violence first and foremost. That was the reason I even checked it out to begin with, because I found it at a time when gore in anime was an insane concept to me that I had never seen before. And that reason hasn't changed, and I still watch it again from time to time, mostly to show it to friends and see how they feel about it. I no longer like using the word overrated, because my brain associates it with someone just bitching about how they're upset that people seem to be liking something that they don't. I will agree that I'm lost on some of the praise that Elfen Lied tends to get. People have called it a masterpiece, and while I might have used that term to describe it as a teenager, I don't really see it that way anymore. I've lost my initial attachment to the series, and admittedly this is because of other things I've seen that have been executed so much better. It's just not as mind-blowing to me now as it was back then when I was a vulnerable kid, but even as an adult, there are still things in this series that I found very interesting, especially for something of this type. Elfen Lied has a lot of things to say about human nature, filial bonds, the way we tend to dehumanize what we don't understand, and most notably, the fragility of the child's psyche. These concepts are explored and given a ton of depth in areas where the viewer might not realize because they're too focused on what the real selling point of Elfen Lied is, which is the violence. So the question becomes this: what is it about the anime that left an impression on me enough that I think it totally puts the manga to shame? Well, I've been making the point over and over again that the aesthetic appeal is much better, but I do think it runs a little bit deeper than that. This was directed by Mamoru Kanbei, the same guy who did Sound of the Sky. This is an anime that many people, including myself, still love to this day. It's a slice of life about the horrors of war, but it also touches on other concepts like loss, trauma, and identity. I might make a video on that series in the future because it's a banger. And yeah, there's a pee fetish scene in that one as well. I don't understand it, but I guess I should just suck it up and get used to it already. I didn't even realize until I had seen the similar introduction sequences recreating Gustav Klimt's art. Upon seeing that the man who made what was my least favorite anime is also behind one of my favorite slice of life shows, I've realized something about Elfen Lied and the concept of adaptation in general. I remember for so long people always talked about how the Elfen Lied manga is better. Anytime you said anything critical of the anime, it was always about how the manga was far superior and you should read it. I have no idea why this is the common consensus, because I've never seen anybody actually explain why they believe this, aside from the fact that it has a more fleshed out ending. But if Kentaro Miura passing around the same time that Attack on Titan's very horrible ending came out is any indicator, it's that a story doesn't really need an ending to be a good story. Of course, that statement, when I wrote it at the time, did not age well because Berserk actually will be getting an ending, but you get the point. I don't think the anime is a masterpiece, especially not when you consider the vast amount of dark anime that I think are executed much better. But I do think that sometimes people tend to dismiss the ideas presented in Elfen Lied just because the gore and nudity stick out a lot more. What makes a good adaptation for me is when it's completely different, yet still faithful and respectful towards what it's trying to adapt. Many people might use the film Oldboy as an example of a good adaptation that completely changes its source material, but to me that doesn't even feel like the same story with the same intent. It's a fantastic film that took concepts from a pretty decent manga, but the message is completely and totally different. What I'm saying is that with shows like Monster, Vinland Saga, or Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, these adaptations are fine for what they are, since they allow people who don't like reading manga a chance to get into the story and see what it's all about, but relatively speaking about them as adaptations, they're bland and they leave a lot to be desired. It's just a big one-to-one translation of the manga with very few changes made. That is not something I consider myself invested in, because the charm of the manga doesn't fully come through in the exact same way. It's kind of like the Watchmen movie, which kept in as much of the comic as it possibly could, Yeah, it's there and it's executed mostly the same, but it doesn't have that Alan Moore charm. I don't feel any of these characters except maybe Rorschach. You know what one of my favorite adaptations of anything is? This obscure little zombie TV show that you might have heard of called The Last of Us. Fucking beautiful show based on an emotional and brilliant video game. And I already really liked the story of the game because it's so fucking good at getting you to give a shit about your character. It motivates you to progress onward purely because of how cute and funny the charming dynamic between Joel and Ellie is. So when the TV show readapted it with more detail, adding in extra lore and explained certain mechanics of the world, fleshing it out and filling in the gaps, they somehow managed to make an already brilliant and beautiful story even better, though their work was mostly cut out for them. But that's what I mean, is that an adaptation should pay respect to its source material while also expanding on it in certain ways. Other really good examples of this are Hoseki no Kuni and Invincible, all of which I prefer over their comic and manga versions respectively. The point I'm trying to make is that Elfen Lied's anime was only as bad as it was because it served as a great foundation for a story that left more to be desired. Pair that with the fact that it's literally incomplete and has a filler ending that attempts to tie up as many loose ends as possible, and it's easy to see why people didn't like it very much compared to the manga. But to me, I will always remember the moment at the end where a girl knocks on the door and Coda goes to answer it, only for the clock that Neo had been working on all this time to suddenly go off out of nowhere. Subtle, ambiguous touches like that leave far more of an impact on me than anything the manga presented at all. So with that, why did I put these videos together in the first place? Well, partly because I think there is genuine value in trying to understand why bad media is bad, but I also just find the entire prospect of the series really fascinating. Why does something feel so right in the moment, and then a few years later, it's complete and utter dog shit? On the surface, you could say that we found it shocking and new, and then we got bored of it. And you'd be pretty close to hitting the nail on the head when it comes to Elfen Lied. I know the reason that I personally loved it so much was because my reference for anime was exclusively popular shonen series like Naruto, Yu-Gi-Oh!, and Dragon Ball. I didn't expect an anime to talk about such uncomfortable topics like rape, and considering I was a minor, very few of the grosser aspects of the series particularly bothered me. For obvious reasons, becoming an adult changed the way that I viewed that sort of thing, but I simply do not accept that as the sole reason it has aged bad. So many shows can push boundaries, even delve into straight-up degenerate territory, and still be compelling and interesting. The problem with Elfen Lied is not in how shocking it is, because that's entirely what it sets out to be. It makes me just as uncomfortable now as it did when I was a teenager. The real reason that Elfen Lied aged poorly is entirely because the writing does not have the strength to do what it wants to do. The only part of this entire series that actually works as intended is literally just how shocking it is in the first place, which is not hard to pull off at all. Everything else varies from being a small nugget of a good idea executed poorly to an offensive lack of subtlety born purely out of blatant insecurity. The series is not confident at all, which again is primarily because it's Lin's first story. The shock factor is core to its entire appeal, but when you don't have anything else beyond just the shock factor, well then that's all it's ever going to be remembered for. But even so, without having experienced this, I'm not sure I would have gotten into other series like Berserk, which I know is a backhanded praise, but that's why I still insisted on putting these videos together in the first place. This was where I started, and even though a series like this absolutely would not fly in our current day and age, the fact that it resonated with so many people over the years, I think, is at least a sign of something. All the things that I complain about, they're not what people remember about this series. People remember the beautiful moments, the crazy fights, and the dramatic twists. Plus, with the entire second half of the manga sort of feeling like the season 2 we never got, things like art style, tasteful storytelling, or pacing don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. There was a universe in which characters were actually at threat of dying. There were no power-ups or get-out-of-jail-free cards. It's a tragic series with a tragic message, and that alone is why it resonated with so many people. I will probably never, ever revisit this series again, but I don't regret having done so, because getting in touch with the version of me that used to like this series has shown me exactly why I love stories in the first place.